Chapter 539. He silently hung up the phone and felt the cool breeze blowing through the window. He felt a little sad and a little pain in the ass. Qin Guang felt that Sister Wu Tong was in charge of killing and not burying. Although she was enjoying it, he was left hanging in the air. He couldn't go up or down. Although he knew that there would be some special services in this hotel, it was different now. He was also a public figure. It was impossible for him to have the courage to call for some special health care. Otherwise, the news would be released on the internet tomorrow. Jin Shiyue's rumored boyfriend is unwilling to be lonely and calls for a call girl late at night. There was another subtitle. Can the goddess's boyfriend really enjoy a happy sex life? The star's strange dreams beneath the surface love. This was King awkward. Forget it, the old man also had the Qilin arm. In the end, it was better to do it himself. It was just that there was no accompaniment to the wine. There was a tiger in the heart, but there was no rose. Wait, if I remember correctly, when I ran away from the workers' stadium, someone seemed to have said that there would be a large scale tonight? I almost forgot. He quickly turned on his phone and logged into WeChat. Sure enough, there was a string of message numbers behind the names of Jiang Yage and Jin Shiyue. He clicked on Jin Shiyue's message first. It was mostly about thanking him for coming to the concert today. She was especially grateful that he had saved the day and so on. There was a hint of reservation between the lines, which was her style. Returning to the initial interface, looking at Jiang Yage's smiling profile picture, Qin Guang only hesitated for 5 seconds before he decisively opened it. The ancients did not lie. Good people will be rewarded. I apologize for my impatience with you before. There were a total of 10 photos in front of him. Just as Jiang Yage said, it was an unprecedented large scale. It was comparable to a certain teacher Chen's photography work. All of them were taken by Jiang Yage herself in the bathroom. Unprecedented and unrestrained, her skin was covered in layers of fine water droplets, suffused with a strange pink color. It was unknown whether it was because of the light or because the blood in her body was boiling. One of the photos was taken from top to bottom, and one could see a small clump of black grass hidden in the middle of 2 mountain peaks. Her perfect figure was completely exposed and she was clearly showing off. Look, my lower abdomen is so flat without any excess fat. There was another one where she was sitting on the edge of the bathtub and it was taken from the bottom up. The lens seemed to be covered with mist, obscuring a certain mysterious area. However, the more hazy the beauty, the more it could stir the fire in others' hearts. The biggest one was a front view of her in the mirror. She was standing very close to the mirror, and her exquisite figure was clearly displayed in the mirror. Everything looked so clear and the expression on her face was hazy and charming, but her left hand formed a V shape, betraying her usual playfulness and cuteness. Damn it! If it wasn't for the fact that he could see her face in 2 of the photos, and if it wasn't for the fact that her figure looked very familiar, Qin Guang would have thought that she had found these photos on the internet. Sigh, towards this classmate, Master Guang was also helpless. Although he knew that something was wrong, he was also a normal man. He really couldn't resist the unscrupulous photo attack of the dignified left and right-hand duo's top superstar, Enchantress Jiang Yage. My Buddha, I repent to you, I'm about to fall. As the saying goes, golden spears and armored horses fight 100 battles against 1,000 armies. About 10 minutes later, Qin Guang only silently threw a pile of tissues to the side of the bed, and then gave a simple reply to Jiang Yage. Awesome, I'm done. Thank you. The photos have been deleted, don't worry. Jiang Yage must have fallen asleep and didn't reply. Every concert was a huge physical test for the artist. They had sung and danced on stage for more than 2 hours today, and they must be exhausted. After a good sleep, Qin Guang woke up to a series of hurried knocks on the door early the next morning. He didn't even have time to wash up. He hurriedly put on his clothes and opened the door. Qin Guang was in a bad mood and he cursed, "Who the hell is so wicked as to come knocking on my door so early in the morning?" He opened the door and saw 2 men in military uniforms standing at the door. He immediately understood that they must be the people that Wu Tong had promised to pick him up yesterday. "You're Qin Guang, right?" The square-faced man in military uniform said coldly with a straight face. Qin Guang felt that there was something wrong with this guy. "I didn't offend you, so why do you act like you've eaten gunpowder? Why is your tone so harsh?" "That's me." "It's good. Come with us. We're on a tight schedule and we don't have time to waste with you," the other black-faced man said as he reached out to pull Qin Guang. "Faster, see." Qin Guang was immediately unhappy. Are you guys crazy? Not only did you come knocking on my door early in the morning without a word, I'll let you off a little since you're here to help. But for no reason you're giving me a cold shoulder. I didn't even let you take my things and you're dragging me away. Did I dig up your ancestral graves or what did I do to offend you? What's wrong with you? Hey, don't overdo it. As Qin Guang spoke, he exerted a little force in his arm and broke free from the square-faced man who reached out to pull him. We're on a mission. I hope you'll cooperate. The square-faced man's face darkened. All right, I don't know who gave you the order and I don't understand why you're acting like you're the best in the world. But if I were you and I was really in such a hurry since you could find me here, you should know my phone number. You should have called me half an hour earlier to inform me instead of arresting me like you're arresting a criminal. Qin Guang turned around and pointed at the things in the room. Are you guys blind? Can't you see that there are bags of things waiting to be packed in my room? You're soldiers, swift and decisive, but I'm not. Seeing that the square-faced man wanted to say something, Qin Guang waved his hand. All right, shut up. I'm not going to serve you anymore. As he spoke, he took out his phone and planned to tell Wu Tong. If her so-called private car was what these two people were like, then he should save it. It might be more comfortable if he ran over himself. The two clearly didn't expect that not only would Qin Guang be uncooperative, but he also had such a bad temper. You dare to be unreasonable after committing a crime? You've got guts. The black-faced soldier was obviously not someone with a good temper. He glared at Qin Guang and raised his hand to grab Qin Guang's phone. Qin Guang quickly retracted his right hand and hid the phone behind his back. His left hand, which moved later, grabbed the black-faced soldier's wrist and exerted a little more strength. The black-faced soldier felt as if he was being clamped by an iron clamp. No matter how much strength he exerted, he couldn't pull his wrist back. Instead, Qin Guang's grip became tighter and tighter. The shock in his heart was indescribable. He wasn't a flashy martial artist. His close-range combat skills were ranked among the top in the Yanjing military. Yet he was easily restrained by someone's left hand. Let go, he shouted. Qin Guang raised his left hand and pushed him back. The black-faced soldier staggered back a few steps before he could stabilize himself. The two exchanged blows for less than 3 seconds. But Qin Guang had completely gained the upper hand with just his left hand. The black-faced soldier's breathing became rapid. His chest heaved up and down. He was a little emotional. The square-faced soldier looked at Qin Guang with caution. He felt that something was wrong. Qin Guang's strength was stronger than he had imagined. That's not right. The intelligence showed that he was just a powerless executive of a state-owned enterprise. He had the tendency to flee overseas. The two of us were ordered to come and restrain him. How could a so-called executive have such strength? Stop joking. There must be a problem somewhere. Forget it. I'll stabilize the situation first. Hazy, look at your communicator. Did you see wrongly? The square-faced soldier turned his head slightly and ordered the black-faced soldier beside him. Hazy nodded and quickly turned around to take out his communicator. Qin Guang was already very impatient. All right, that's it. I won't make things difficult for you. It's my fault. I shouldn't have disturbed the important national equipment. I can't afford to provoke you, but I can at least hide. Qin Guang waved his hand and ordered them to leave. He planned to close the door first. As a normal person, he really couldn't communicate with these two guys who were spewing bullets. Wait. Listen, wait. The square-faced soldier raised his hand. Qin Guang turned to look at him. What? You're afraid that I'll tell on you? It's fine. Don't worry. I'm not a 3-year-old who will tell on the teacher for no reason. Maybe you're really busy. You've troubled the two of you to come and pick me up. Maybe I've really delayed your important national affairs. I understand. I'm really sorry. There seems to be some misunderstanding here. Hazy had just looked at his communicator. He looked a little embarrassed. It's my negligence. I confused Mr. Qin with our other mission target. I almost believed you. Can't you be more professional? You're soldiers. This isn't a primary school kid's house. As taxpayers, we pay tens of millions in taxes every year to support you guys. Qin Guang curled his lips. The two of them were red in the face and extremely embarrassed. The black-faced soldier on the other side, Hazy, had no choice but to look at his communicator again. It showed that this Qin Guang seemed to be the special instructor of Shun's special training camp. It was fine to show him a name. Hazy used his hand to cover most of the communicator's screen. He only revealed 2 names and showed them to Qin Guang. Mr. Qin, look. This is really a misunderstanding. Qin Guang looked at the name between Hazy's fingers. He was amused. What a coincidence. It showed that it was Qin Guang. It's like this. The 2 messages came one after the other. Qin Guang's was first and Mr. Chen's was second. His room is opposite yours. When I saw the second message, I thought that the person in the information department typed the wrong words. I also thought that Qin Guang quietly changed rooms. This is really... Hazy scratched his head. The square-faced soldier looked at him speechlessly. This Hazy was good at everything. He dared to fight and his skills were excellent. It was just that he was careless sometimes. This was a joke. Captain Chen, you talk to Mr. Chen. I'll go to room 402 opposite to find Qin Guang. Although Hazy was careless, he was not stupid. He turned around and slipped away. Qin Guang's room 403 and Qin Guang's room 402. It was easy to get them mixed up if one was not careful. Hazy began to knock on the door again. Qin Guang looked at Captain Chen. He turned around to clean up the room and said, actually, Qing and Chen's pronunciation is different. Captain Chen, you're from Dechuan, right? Do you have a nasal and lateral accent? Captain Chen blushed. That's true. I'm from Lilai County, Xiang City. Qin Guang coughed a few times. What do you mean by hometown? Thinking back carefully, all the boys in high school relied on guessing for the first pinyin question during the language exam. It was basically the same for the top classes. This was indeed the tradition of Lilai County. That's awkward. I'm also from Lilai County. I graduated from Lilai High. What about you? Qin Guang asked as he cleaned up. Captain Chen was slightly happy to meet someone from the same hometown in a foreign land. Then he blushed and smiled bitterly. My family was poor when I was young. I didn't go to high school and joined the army directly. It's good to be a soldier. Many of my buddies have joined the army. My dad is also a retired soldier. Captain Chen felt that although this specially hired instructor Qin Guang was a young man, he had a good upbringing. Of course, this was also because it was comfortable and pleasing to the eye to see someone from the same hometown. In fact, strictly speaking, Qin Guang didn't show much of a good temper just now. Qin Guang couldn't be bothered to haggle with them anymore. If they really wanted to arrest him and mistakenly treated him as a criminal, then there was really nothing strange about their attitude just now. He had already committed a crime and they had already used the special forces. If they wanted to arrest him, they couldn't just let him eat a bowl of wontons and sing a song, right? The 2 chatted and became familiar with each other. However, Captain Chen didn't enter the door. Instead, he focused on the door of room 402 opposite. Blackie was still knocking on the door, but there was no movement from inside. Notebook, change of clothes, phone charger, tea, sports bag, dart box. Qin Guang was stuffing miscellaneous things into a large backpack. At this moment, the door of room 402 finally opened, but there was no one inside. Instead, a black muzzle peeked out. It was extremely creepy. This was the occupational danger of soldiers and police officers. Sometimes you thought it was a small mission, but in the process of carrying out the specific mission, the situation often changed in an instant and the next second your life would be in danger. Every year, many soldiers and police officers would die in the line of duty. They used their lives to protect the country and the people's property and lives. This was the situation at this moment. In an instant, Qin Guang, Captain Chen and Blackie's hair stood on end. Blackie's face darkened even more. Motherf *Ker, this executive named Qin Guang is at risk of absconding. It seems that it's not possible for him to abscond at all, but he was already prepared to run. However, he didn't expect the relevant departments to arrive so quickly. In a panic, he took out his weapon and planned to fight to the death. In a flash, Blackie suddenly dodged to the other side of the door, while Captain Chen rushed into Qin Guang's room. He opened his arms and subconsciously growled, "Mr. Chen, get down." He was really a competent and responsible soldier. In this life-and-death situation, he subconsciously expanded his body to protect Qin Guang. After all, Qin Guang's current identity was that of a civilian while he was a soldier. Qin Guang, who was stuffing the dart box into his backpack, opened the box at lightning speed, grabbed a dart, raised his hand and threw it. The dart flew out like lightning, passing by Captain Chen's waist and hitting the muzzle behind the door. Chapter 540. It was a long story, But from the moment Qin Guang saw that the situation was bad to the moment he threw the dart into the muzzle of the opponent's gun, only a second had passed. A scream came from behind the door of room 402, and the opponent's hand that was holding the gun was fractured. Qin Guang had practically used all the strength in his Qilin arm to throw the dart out of desperation. Even elites like Xue Lin and He Zi weren't his opponents, so how could an ordinary person like Qin Guang deal with it? The pistol also fell to the ground, but Blackie reacted quickly. He raised his leg and kicked the door. There was a loud bang and another scream came from behind the door. In the next moment, Blackie had already pounced in and pressed the middle-aged man who was hiding behind the door to the ground. Captain Qin glanced at Qin Guang and thanked him. He then turned around to help He Zi completely control Qin Guang. On the other hand, Qin Guang did not feel anything as he calmly packed his luggage. When he was done, he carried his big bag to the door of room 402. Inside, He Zi and Captain Qin had already tied up the state-owned enterprise executive like a big dumpling. The gun that fell to the ground was also locked and held in Captain Qian's hand. Captain Qin looked at the muzzle in shock. The entire tungsten steel dart was completely embedded in the gun barrel, and only a small part of the tail was exposed. Qin Guang didn't shoot just now, or else he would have been injured by the explosion. The more Captain Qin looked, the more shocked he was. This special instructor was a bit too powerful. From the sudden change to him throwing the dart and hitting the muzzle, it was less than 0.5 seconds. Moreover, at that time his body was completely spread out, and the opponent's muzzle was hidden behind the door. The flight path of the dart was probably extremely small. No, if I remember correctly, I should have completely blocked it at that time. In other words, his dart made a turn in the air and then stabbed into the muzzle with such a terrifying force. What kind of amazing eyesight, what kind of terrifying strength, what kind of swift and fierce reaction. This person was playing with the darts to the point of perfection. Captain Qin, the surname Cheng's right hand has a comminuted fracture. He Zi checked Qin Guang's injury and said in shock, "Oh my God." Captain Qin sucked in a breath of cold air. At this time, Qin Guang stood at the door with an innocent face and said helplessly, "It seems that your mission is quite important. Why don't you go about your business and I'll go to Shun by myself?" Captain Qin waved his hands. No. It's also our mission to pick you up. Don't worry about it. Blackie and I are just special agents in charge of the actual operation. The local troops and the police are on their way. We'll hand him over to them immediately and there'll be nothing left for us to do." Soldiers had always worshipped the strong, not to mention that Qin Guang was ridiculously strong. Qin Guang's move just now, in addition to the strength he displayed when he easily pinched He Zi with his left hand, was enough to make Captain Qin and He Zi respect him from the bottom of their hearts. The three of them waited together for more than 10 minutes and the backup came late. When they heard that Qin Guang actually carried a gun with him, the level of the case was raised again. Previously, some of his problems were still in doubt, but he actually took it out when he was being investigated. This could only mean that the problem with him was more serious than they had imagined. After a while, Qin Guang finally got into Captain Qin and He Zi's car and went to Shun's special training camp together. "Instructor Qin, this time are you going to the special training camp to train Captain Xue alone, or do we all have the opportunity?" After sitting in the car for a short while, the outspoken He Zi couldn't help but ask. He even changed his title to instructor. Last night, Wu Tong's phone call had been hung up too quickly, and Qin Guang didn't know how she communicated with the special training camp. For a moment he really didn't know how to answer He Zi's question. He was afraid that he would say something wrong, and it wouldn't match up with Wu Tong and Xue Lin's communication with the troops. It was a small matter to cheat Xue Lin on the issue of discipline, but he couldn't cheat Sister Wu Tong. "He Zi, have you forgotten the military discipline? Don't ask questions that you shouldn't ask." Captain Qin saw that Qin Guang didn't want to talk about it, so he shut He Zi's mouth. The three of them chatted along the way, and halfway through the car He Zi suddenly said, "Instructor Qin, I don't want to criticize you, but you really have a bad temper. When you grabbed my hand just now, I thought it was clamped by steel pliers. Come on you guys. I don't even know what's going on. I had a good sleep early in the morning and it's fine that I was knocked out of bed by the two of you, but the moment you came, you started to talk nonsense. You even said that I committed a crime and you even touched me first. How can I not be angry?" Qin Guang said angrily. Captain Qin apologized again. "It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding." Qin Guang, who was sitting in the back, pursed his lips. Misunderstanding your face. It seems that the two of you usually handle cases like this, but it's no wonder. Qin Guang pulled out his gun at the slightest disagreement today. It shows that most of the criminals that the two of them usually face are vicious people, and the cases that they handle are also major cases. Naturally, when they are on a mission, they are more vicious than ordinary police officers. Looking at their organization, they belong to the military, but they do some police-related work. Although they didn't ask which unit they belong to, they can't run away from the word special service in front of their names. Perhaps they are similar to Xuelin's special team in the 5 capitals, specializing in some urgent and major situations that ordinary police officers and special forces can't handle. Oh right, after we go in, Instructor Chen, you must not wander around. Although you are a specially hired instructor, Shun's special training camp is a bit special. It has been many years since a non-staff member has entered Shun's special training camp. After going through a twisting and turning path for an hour, the tall green wall in front of them stood impressively in the valley. On both sides of the road were 2 mountains, and the solid wall that was several feet high was built at the exit of the valley. There were several dark holes on the wall, and no one knew how many pairs of eyes were watching outside. At the bottom of the high wall was a large iron gate that looked very thick. Even a layman like Qin Guang could smell the unusual atmosphere from the outside of Shun's special training camp. Captain Qian also greeted Qin Guang in advance. Hey, I understand. There are many rules in the army. I won't cause you any trouble. Qin Guang nodded. The two of them kept taking Qin Guang deep into the special training camp until Xuelin stood under a building with its back against the mountain. Only then did they hand him over. Xuelin was quite embarrassed. Brother Qin Guang, I'm really sorry to trouble you to come personally. Qin Guang examined Xuelin. Although Xuelin didn't grow any stronger in the past 2 days, Qin Guang's vigor alone made him look more imposing than 2 days ago. Evidently, Qin Guang had been exposed to the sun a lot. Don't be embarrassed. I didn't come for you. Oh right, where is Sister Wu Tong? In front of Xuelin, Qin Guang was straightforward and didn't hide anything from him. Sister Wu Tong's usual training area isn't here. He has to go further in. So troublesome? Qin Guang was distressed. Then do you have any way to use Yanjing's Skynet to help me investigate people? Xuelin was taken aback. She shook her head awkwardly. I really can't. I can use my connections to get Brother Qin Guang in as a special instructor, but using Skynet's resources to investigate people and things belongs to Sister Wu Tong's special training area. I can't do that unless it's a war. It's a little taboo for me to do that with my connections. Qin Guang was really confused by the extremely complicated things here. He hurriedly said, Okay, I won't beat around the bush. I came all the way here not only to help you with the special training, but also to find out where a few people are at this time. I don't believe that Wu Tong can't find a way to see me if she asks me to come here. Make a long story short, what should I do to get to her side? I had this idea before, but then Sister Wu Tong changed her mind. What did she say? She heard that you were going to teach me something, so she wanted to get you in as an external instructor for the special training personnel. But then I told her that Brother Qin Guang once said that special training can't be taught easily, and there's no way to teach more people, so she rejected this idea. I think she might be planning to find an excuse to ask for personal leave like she did last night to come here. Qin Guang was in a dilemma. If what Xuelin said was true, then didn't he come here for nothing? Although it was rare to meet Wu Tong and he was very happy and he might even be able to take advantage of her, his main purpose was not here. His motive for coming here was to investigate the family that was still in Yanjing and Wenwen's whereabouts. My motive was very pure. No, I have to think of another way. I must get to Wu Tong's special training area. Can you find a way to inform her? Ask her not to rush over tonight. I'll think about it carefully. I must go to her side. Arrange a place for me to stay and I'll think about it by myself. You don't need to do surprise training for the time being. You're in good condition now. From now on, focus on recovery training and I'll give you special training tomorrow night. Also, you better think about one thing in your heart. Other than your comrades, what else in this world can't you give up? I'm not joking with you. My special training can really kill you if you're careless. Xuelin nodded and brought Qin Guang to the room that was already arranged for him in the 3rd floor dormitory. However, after Qin Guang connected the computer, he didn't feel very good. There was no internet, wasn't this a trap? He was really bored, so he simply picked up the script of Women, and started to ponder over it. He didn't know if it was because of the heavenly Holy Grail, but his memory seemed to be much better than before. In the past, it was more uncomfortable for him to memorize boring things. Now, although he didn't have a photographic memory, he basically memorized the script seriously, and his efficiency was at least several times higher than before. Qin Guang guessed that this might be due to the extra 200 years he lived in the Sea of Time. After all, he was experienced, knowledgeable, and had a strong memory. About an hour later, someone knocked on his door. It was Captain Qian. "Instructor Qian, are you there?" Opening the door, Qin Guang looked at Captain Qian in confusion. "Captain Qian, what's the matter?" Captain Qian rubbed his hands in embarrassment. "It's like this, Instructor Qian. If I'm disturbing you, then I can't do anything about it. I thought you were going to say you're embarrassed. If you can't do anything about it, then why are you pretending to be embarrassed? Don't they all say that soldiers are straightforward? You should learn from your little brother, Hazy. Just say what's the matter. I'm not used to you being like this." "It's like this. When Hazy and I were chatting with other colleagues, we talked about your amazing dart. My colleagues didn't quite believe it. So, what does this have to do with me?" That's why I'd like to invite Instructor Qian to the training ground over there so that everyone can see it for themselves. Of course, if it's possible, we also hope that Instructor Qian can teach us a thing or two. After all, you're the instructor, right?" Captain Qian was thick-skinned. He made such a shameless request without batting an eyelid. Qin Guang frowned. This wouldn't benefit him at all. "I'm not familiar with you guys, so why would I teach you guys? Besides, I used countless lives and countless holes on my body to get my dart skills. If I really wanted to teach others, I really wouldn't know how. Well, maybe my request is a bit presumptuous, but I hope Instructor Qian can understand our feelings. You've seen it today. Our work is always in danger, so we're never willing to give up any opportunity to master more military skills. Maybe one day in the future this skill can save our lives in actual combat." "Qian Ming, step aside. You can't convince him. Let me do it." At this moment, a spirited white-haired old man walked in from the door. Qian Ming's body tensed up. He stood at attention and saluted the man. He said loudly, "General Tan." "General." Qin Guang's eyelids twitched. In this era of peace, there weren't many generals in the country. He didn't know much about military ranks, but looking at the rows of bars hanging on his chest, he seemed to be very powerful. The old man had quite an imposing manner and was quite deceitful. "Hello, General Tan." He also imitated Qian Ming's action and saluted. "You're Qin Guang, right? I heard about you from my subordinates. I also specifically watched the video of you participating in the World Championship. I'm very interested in your dart skills. You do have a very unique side in this aspect. You're even better than a little girl we've met before. You also know that little girl. Her name is Xin Qin." General Tan had an easygoing smile on his face as he walked forward slowly. "Really? Thank you for your appreciation, General Tan. I don't deserve it." The other party could recognize Xin Qin's name. Obviously he was knowledgeable. Qin Guang's guess about General Tan's identity was a little higher. "You're a straightforward person, so I won't beat around the bush with you. I'm the person in charge of the Shun Special Training Camp. Now, as the Commander-in-Chief of the Shun Special Forces, I'm officially inviting Mr. Qin to be the chief instructor of the team's dart course. What do you think, Qin Guang?" General Tan spoke like this. He went straight to the point and cut the Gordian knot. Qin Guang hesitated. He didn't have the intention to be a soldier. He was born free and carried the big secret of the heavenly Holy Grail. It might not be a good thing to plunge into the military system. Are you going to say that you're undisciplined by nature and might not be able to adapt to the rules of the military? He didn't expect General Tan to see through him again. This old man wanted to seize the initiative in the conversation with every sentence. He was trying to suppress me in the conversation. Qin Guang's heart was alarmed. If it was a real young man, he might really be suppressed by General Tan's pressing style of conversation. But who was he? The old man was a monster who had lived in the Sea of Time for 200 years. The old man was the prophet and sage Right-Chin that 178 billion people in the Sea of Time had to look up to. You want to suppress me with just a few words? The salt I've eaten is more than the rice you've seen. Don't flaunt your seniority here. General Tan didn't know that his habitual domineering attitude had aroused the resistance in Qin Guang's heart. Qin Guang turned his body slightly and his aura suddenly changed. He smiled. I appreciate General Tan's good intentions, but I'll dispense with the military rank and organization. It's also my wish to contribute to the country. However, in my Qin Guang's 20 years of simple life, I didn't really enjoy much help and care from the country. So to put it bluntly, it's not that I can't teach you, but there's no such thing as giving it to the country for free. His meaning was very clear. I can teach you, but I want benefits. It's an equivalent exchange. Don't fool me with an empty title and an empty promise. I won't fall for it. I'm also not interested in being a soldier. I have a very comfortable life outside. I don't need to run into the army to tie a rope around my neck. Qin Guang's words were resolute and didn't give General Tan any room to maneuver. General Tan's eyes narrowed slightly and stared straight at Qin Guang as if he wanted to see through Qin Guang's real thoughts. But he gave up after a moment. He felt it was incredible because the young man standing in front of him didn't have any of the immaturity he showed when he was chatting with Chen Ming. If he didn't see him with his own eyes, General Tan would almost think that he was facing a wise elder who had seen through all the vicissitudes of the world. Qin Guang still smiled calmly, but he was laughing in his heart. A young man who's not even 80 years old, how can you understand the life awareness of a 200-year-old monster? You're still trying to show off. Chapter 541. Young man, it's wrong for you to think like this. General Tan might have been in a high position for too long, so he was not used to Qin Guang's straightforward way of asking for benefits. He wanted to refute, but he felt that something was wrong. In his view of life, a person could give up anything for the country, even his life. How could he ask for benefits from the country just to be an instructor? He was a little unhappy and even wanted to use his identity to force Qin Guang, but he suddenly remembered a lot of things. This young man never seemed to be easy to deal with. Previously, the matter between him and Su Lijing caused a storm in the political circle, but it did not cause any big waves in the military circle. Only a few people paid more attention to this matter. What was done was done. Although Su Lijing's influence in the country was not small as a technocrat, although he had some connections, his foundation was not deep. He was not like the traditional forces in the military and political circles who had been deeply rooted for many years. Making a move against Su Lijing wouldn't be a huge blow to China. Perhaps his so-called comrades might feel sympathy for him, but there's no guarantee that anyone would dare to stand up for him and fight to the death with Qin Guang. But in any case, it happened after all. Qin Guang, as a mere college student, brazenly overthrew a big name who had been rooted in the domestic economic circle for many years. In addition, his love with Jin Shuiwei could not be ignored. Although in the eyes of the older generation like General Tan, no one was really optimistic about the young man's impulsive journey together. But that was Jin Shuiwei, not an ordinary female artist who changed boyfriends every day. The special family behind her was destined that every love of hers was not vigorous, but it must be extraordinarily serious. In any case, before the relationship between the two broke, Qin Guang was already half a member of the Jin family. Not only that, Xiao Shuer and Wu Tong also paid special attention to him. This guy also had a close relationship with the old man's grandson, so there was no need to force him. General Tan, I won't argue with you because it's meaningless. It's not that I'm being selfish, but there's something that's hard to say. How about this? Since General Tan knows Xen Qin, why don't you simply let Xen Qin represent her sect and teach you the art of concealed weapons? This move of Qin Guang's was called retreating in order to advance. General Tan used the fact that he knew Xen Qin to hint to Qin Guang that they had other choices other than him. Qin Guang, on the other hand, did the opposite. I'm not interested in your matter. Since you know Xen Qin, why don't you go look for her? Although Qin Guang had never entered the inner circle of the so-called inner force users, from the people and events he had come into contact with so far, it was obvious that these people with inner force were extremely special in the country. If the military wanted to obtain their abilities, the price they would have to pay would be far greater than expected. As expected, when General Tan heard Qin Guang's words, he became even more embarrassed. He thought to himself, I'm looking for you because you look like you're easier to fool. You're not like those sects with inner force users who are all cunning and often ask for exorbitant prices. Just to get Thousand Despair sect out of the situation of seclusion, they had paid a huge price. They even pushed Xen Qin, a little girl with a perverse character, to the position of the China Escort Association president. Even then they still couldn't start a formal negotiation with Thousand Despair Sect. God knows how much it would cost Thousand Despair Sect to send someone as an instructor. Comparing the two, General Tan gradually figured it out. Since Qin Guang's skills were stronger than Thousand Despair Sect's eldest disciple Xin Qin, and even Xin Qin was willing to follow by his side, since he showed signs of relenting, wasn't it only right and proper to give some benefits? It was his brain that short-circuited. General Tan's mood instantly lightened up when he thought of this. Qin Guang also noticed the change in him and laughed inwardly. He seemed to have understood. Qin Guang, what do you want? General Tan waved his hand slightly, signaling Qian Ming to leave. Qian Ming bowed and left the dormitory. Qin Guang thought for a moment, his eyes focused. I need a special identity. A license to kill? General Tan asked. Qin Guang asked in return, does such a thing really exist? You can pretend that he doesn't have it, but you can also pretend that he does. The so-called license to kill doesn't really allow a madman to kill without taking responsibility. It's only for some special cases. When a soldier is carrying out an important mission, he has the power to strike first against a confirmed criminal. But this doesn't mean that you can use this power to take revenge, nor does it mean that you can use it as a reason to rule over the people. General Tan had already guessed Qin Guang's request. I can give you an identity to be attached to my Shun special training camp. In terms of rank, you will be at the same level as Qian Ming. You can mobilize some of the intelligence resources that you want. Some of your requests will also be given special treatment under special circumstances. Other than that, although you have this special identity, we will not assign you any tasks. You will still have complete freedom. Of course, if you are willing, you can also consider forming your own special operations team, and we will fully cooperate with you in the selection of candidates. General Tan's words were not very clear. They were somewhat ambiguous, but the meaning was very clear. This was a real amulet within the system. Qin Guang nodded, deal. But forget about the special operations team. I don't have that much of a sense of justice. I prefer to sweep the snow in front of my own door. The youngsters nowadays really can't be compared to our generation. General Tan relaxed and teased after the matter was settled. Qin Guang laughed. You can't say it like that. If it's really a national crisis, of course, everyone has a responsibility. It's a man's wish to do his part and turn the world upside down. But the times are different now. Everyone has different demands in life. For example, the research companies that invest billions of US dollars in research and development every year, sit on countless patents, and break one technical barrier after another for our China. I think their contribution is no less than the soldiers guarding the border with guns. Indeed, it's me who can't keep up with the times. The future belongs to you young people. Qian Ming, come in and take Qin Guang to go through the formalities. You will be comrades in arms from now on. General Tan gave a few more instructions before bidding farewell to Qin Guang and leaving. He brushed past Qian Ming and walked out of the room. For some reason, Old Man Tan, who was a man of virtue and prestige and a veteran of the battlefield, had an illusion in his heart. It was as if the person he had just negotiated with wasn't a young man, but a peak sovereign scepter expert who stood at the peak of the world and held the life and death of billions of people in his hands. He shivered slightly and shook his head. He was puzzled. So strange. Why would I think that? When Qin Guangjing saw this scene, he turned his head slightly and looked out the window. Invincible, it's so lonely. I don't want to take out Right Chen's status to talk to people. It's all because you seduced me. Instructor Qin Guang, this way. Qian Ming's head hung very low. He didn't dare to look Qin Guang in the eyes. Qin Guang patted his shoulder. Old Qian, don't call me Instructor Qin in the future. Call me Brother Guang. Yes, Instructor Qin. Half an hour later, Qin Guang changed into a military uniform and appeared on the training ground. Looking at the thousands of people below, he was a little drunk. Old Man Tan was too good at maximizing resources. He'd pulled everyone in the training camp over here. What happened to the special elite training? If I'm not wrong, the people standing on the far left of the square formation are the cooks. Looking at their greasy faces and palms stained with oil, did they just walk out of the kitchen? Qin Guang pointed at the group of people suspected to be the cooks. He pulled Qian Ming over and asked. This group of people? Oh, Old Li from the cooks. Li Big Mouth. Qian Ming said casually. They really are from the cooks. Qin Guang turned his head and looked resentfully at General Tan, who was sitting in the distance as a spectator. There were many middle-aged people around him. The epaulets and bars on their chests weren't as spectacular as Old Man Tan's. They were mostly middle-level leaders in Shun's special training camp. Looking at the microphone in front of him, then looking at the many soldiers standing ramrods straight below the stage, looking at him with incomparable eagerness, Qin Guang began to feel awkward. I just agreed readily, but the problem is, how should I teach them? Thinking about it carefully, I really have no clue what to do. So many people are staring at me. Damn, Old Man Tan, don't look at me with that face full of expectation. I'm a little confused. At this moment, Hazy rushed over from the side, holding a laptop in his hand. Instructor Qin, why don't we put down the teaching materials first? Teaching materials? What the hell? How come I don't know about it? Qin Guang was puzzled. Hazy laughed mischievously. It's those videos you posted on the internet. I watched them all. They're really awesome. Many of my comrades don't know about it. Everyone is just obeying orders out of habit. That's why they're willing to stand here and wait for class. But if they watch your videos and documentaries first, then they'll understand how awesome you are. Their mood will be different and the effect of your teaching will be much better. Qin Guang touched his mouth. He felt that what Hazy said was reasonable, but he was a little embarrassed. Although the old man's skin is thick, it's really not right for me to talk about my documentary in front of others. In the sea of moment, I can barely be completely shameless, but here there's Shui Lin looking at me eagerly from the side. I'm very shy. This brother Qin Guang, why don't you go rest first? I've watched your entire competition, why don't you let me do it? At this moment Shui Lin walked over. Qin Guang secretly gave him a thumbs up. No wonder he was the first disciple that the old man took a liking to. His eyes were really good. He quickly turned and ran to the shady area where Old Man Tan and the others were gathered. He lifted the heavenly holy grail, crossed his legs and drank his tea. Colleagues, I'm Shui Lin from the 5 Capital Military Region. Many of you know me, so I'll just introduce myself. But today I'll be talking about my instructor, Mr. Qin Guang. I'll have to start from a big case that happened 3 months ago. I'm sure many colleagues have already guessed that it's the Shattered World Organization's invasion of the 5 Capital. On the other side, Shui Lin had already brought out Qin Guang's past and confidently talked about it. On this side, Qin Guang came looking for Old Man Tan. Little Qin, how do you plan to teach? Qin Guang cursed in his heart that this old man didn't trust him, but he really had no clue. He could only smile and drink his tea while pretending to be profound. He pointed at the soldiers standing upright under the hot sun and said indifferently, General Tan, haven't you noticed that my special training has already begun? The so-called acting mysterious was referring to what Qin Guang was doing at this moment. He only had an unfathomable look and everything was said without words. In any case, Old Man Tan didn't understand. Perhaps in his heart Xin Qin and I had the same thoughts. In short, he just had the attitude of, you people from the court don't understand the affairs of the pugilistic world. As expected, when General Tan heard this, his eyes narrowed. He looked at the 1,000 soldiers below who were completely focused on Shui Lin's story. So that's how it is. Amazing. Impressive. Qin Guang chuckled. You flatter me, you flatter me. Actually, he had no idea how Old Man Tan thought he was impressive, but that wasn't important. It was fine as long as he could fool people. He coughed lightly again and said, General Tan, forgive me for speaking bluntly. Although these 1,000 or so people below can be considered elites in the military, in my eyes, there really isn't much to be done. What do you mean? My skills are based on pure talent. It's not something that can be learned just by having a physical fitness up to standard. It's more about the root bone. Yes, that's right, the root bone. This so-called root bone isn't just the muscles, bones and skin. It also involves some mysterious things that I can't explain to you. You won't understand even if I explain more. Although Old Master Guang's acting skills were terrible, his bragging skills were top-notch. His empty words and random concepts were top-notch at fooling people. He said 1,000 and 10,000 things, but the summary was as follows. Your people don't have talent, so even if I teach them they might not be able to learn and most likely won't be able to learn. As for the reason, I've already said, it's because they don't have talent. To put it more plainly, they don't have the root bone. Don't ask me what the root bone is. You won't understand even if I tell you. In short, don't blame me if your people can't learn it even if I teach them with all my might. He had already started to shift the blame. Your people can't learn it because they're too weak. Don't blame the old man for not trying his best. Old man Tan felt a little lost after listening, but it wasn't that he couldn't understand. After all, the abilities that Qin Guang had displayed in the World Darts Championship or in the videos he had filmed were completely beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. Extraordinary people would do extraordinary things. They couldn't be judged by common sense. General Tan sighed. I understand. It's fine. Little Qin, I understand what you mean. Let's try our luck. He looked at the warriors below silently, his heart filled with bitterness and hatred. Those inherited forces that had mastered inner force were really detestable. Each one of them was more difficult to deal with than the other, so much so that they still hadn't made any breakthroughs in this aspect. If inner force could be popularized among the modern soldiers, how wonderful would that be? It was already so difficult to cooperate with the Thousand Despair sect, which was so desolate that it was almost lost, not to mention the other rumored forces such as the Wen clan that everyone knew was near Yanjing, but they were nowhere to be seen. Chapter 542. An ugly daughter-in-law would eventually meet her parents-in-law, and Qin Guang couldn't delay the time forever. General Tan and others were determined to sit here until they saw the special training course of the new chief instructor, Qin Guang. They didn't want to let Master Guang, who only wanted to fool them, have sores on his buttocks and be restless. About an hour later, Xuelin waved his hand heavily and said loudly, "As you can see, our new chief instructor Qin Guang is young. Our new chief instructor Qin Guang might be young, but he has already pushed the art of darts to the strongest realm in human history. Even in the legends, it was absolutely impossible to find an expert like him who could shoot with such ease. Now I ask you, do you look forward to the opportunity to learn the unique skills of the chief instructor? Tell me loudly. Do you look forward to it?" Xuelin was very famous in the military circle of the five capitals, not because of who he was, but because of his daring style and the brilliant achievements of his team. Even in Yanjing, thousands of kilometers away, Xuelin's name was also very loud. After all, he had been among the best in the military competitions many times. His ability to express himself was also quite learned from his family. He flattered Qin Guang from all angles. He praised Qin Guang's skills, strength, eyesight, and comprehensive personal strength. Even Qin Guang himself blushed when he heard it. Qin Guang said, "After listening to you, I feel that I can fight a team alone. No one can stop me. I want to save the world and liberate all mankind." He himself was like this, not to mention the thousands of soldiers under the stage. Everyone raised their arms and shouted in unison, looking forward to it. "Next, let's welcome the chief instructor Qin Guang." Xuelin shouted loudly, moved his body and made a leading gesture. "Class, let's go." No matter. Qin Guang braced himself to stand on the stage, looking at the thousands of soldiers looking at him with extremely fanatical eyes, especially Li Dazue from the cookhouse. The small eyes on his chubby face were almost shining. How should I teach him? He took a deep breath and told himself, "Qin Guang, don't panic, don't be nervous. You are a fraud. That's right. Right now you're like Einstein who was invited to an elementary school. Don't show any signs of fear. Just say whatever you want as long as it's something they don't understand." I had to come up with a complete plan to trick them. First, I had to show off my skills on the spot to pave the way for my next trick. I'm not good with words. The first step was to find a suitable excuse for the sudden change in his speech style. 1,000 words are not as good as throwing a dart. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out a dart from his trouser pocket and threw it forward. The extremely sharp dart streaked across a distance of more than 100 meters and fiercely nailed into the doorframe of a door in the distance. Someone drew a hook on the door and my dart hit the tail of the hook. "Xuelin, go take a photo and then put it on the big LED screen behind me." 3 minutes later, thousands of elite soldiers and cookhouse members of Shun's special training camps stared at the photo on the huge LED screen. They all opened their mouths wide and couldn't speak for a long time. It was the dart that Qin Guang had thrown just now. Not only was the entire head of the dart stuck in the wooden board, but it was also inserted into the tail of a curved hook the size of a fingernail. At a distance of more than 100 meters he couldn't hit it with such accuracy, and it was even outdoors. This was not an indoor game like the World Darts Championship. Crossing such a long distance, his strength was beyond the comprehension of ordinary people. Moreover, he had to consider the influence of the air and wind, but he was still confident that he could hit the target the moment he threw the dart. In addition, what's wrong with your eyes? Ordinary people can't see clearly at such a distance, okay? Even the sharpshooters in the army wouldn't dare to say that they could control the accuracy of a sniper rifle below the millimeter level from such a distance. Are you still human? Everyone, including General Tan, was shocked. Seeing is believing. No matter how much you see it on TV, it's still not as shocking as seeing it in person. General Tan's heart was lifted. This kid's ultimate skill really lived up to its name. No, it's even stronger than the rumors. He was just fooling around in the World Championship. He had never shown his true abilities. I underestimated him. Giving him a special identity will definitely be worth the price. Qin Guang keenly observed everyone's expression, especially Old Tan's intoxicated and satisfied face. Very good, this is the effect I wanted. He let out a long sigh of relief. The first step of the deception plan was very successful. Next, I had to say a very pretentious line to see if I could fool these people, especially Old Man Tan. What I said next was very important. The second step is to completely pull this matter into metaphysics. If you can't learn it, it's because you don't have enough talent or fate. It's definitely not because I didn't teach you anything. As everyone can see, and as Xuelin said, I am indeed the strongest dart thrower in the entire history of mankind. I have absolute confidence in this. Even a robot can't be more accurate than me with a gun. Everyone nodded, not feeling that he was bragging at all. I'm also very willing to pass on my skills to you, so I accepted the responsibility of the chief instructor that General Tan gave me. Everyone is responsible for the rise and fall of the country. Everyone's eyes became more and more fanatical. But I can't guarantee that any of you will be able to learn it. Everyone was in an uproar. Your aptitude is too poor. I really can't be satisfied. Other than that, this kind of skill that surpasses the limits of human beings is more about one word: enlightenment. If hard work can lead to greatness, then what's the use of geniuses in this world? Only true geniuses can grasp that 1% inspiration after putting in 99% of their sweat. First, he used the appropriate foreshadowing to strike everyone's confidence. This was exactly what Qin Guang did. Next, it was the most crucial time to fabricate his skills. Next, you have to remember every word that I'm about to say. My special training will never teach you how to hold a dart, how to throw a dart, and how to exert force. Those are the most inferior skills in the mortal world. Relying on these training, you can only become an amateur dart athlete at best, which is 9 levels lower than my realm. If you want to learn my skills, the only way is to use your heart. You have to let yourself believe that your dart will definitely hit the target after it is thrown. Only by making the belief in the depths of your heart extremely firm, can you make every organ and every cell in your whole body listen to your command when you throw the dart. Remember my mantra: the heart arrives first, the dart arrives at the same time. Calm your mind and sharp your eyes like an eagle. If you can do these 4 points, your dart will be invincible. Every time you want to throw a dart, you will see a path. Your dart will follow this path that only exists in your heart and go straight to the target you want to hit. You have to be extremely, blindly, and downright confident. I'm done. That's the end of the special training. Qin Guang said solemnly, then took out the remaining 11 darts in the dart box in one go, and shot them at the previous door. The 11 darts shot out at the same time, nailing a 5-pointed star on the door, and one of the darts with a red tail was right in the middle of the 5-pointed star. Then he swung his hands, turned around, and left without any hesitation. He had achieved his goal. It seemed like he was rambling on about a lot of mysterious things, but in fact he didn't say anything at all. But other people didn't think so. Even General Tan, who was an experienced and knowledgeable person, was completely stunned by his words and the last trick that he revealed. Old Man Tan looked at Qin Guang's back with a complicated expression. Was this the ultimate hidden weapon technique that was even more powerful than the Thousand Despair sect? The heart arrives first, the dart arrives at the same time. Calm your mind and sharp your eyes like an eagle. Truly unfathomable. Truly unfathomable. Commander-in-Chief, how are our people going to practice? A sensible person next to him realized the problem. This chief instructor didn't even say how to practice. General Tan glared. Didn't he just say that he doesn't care to teach these low-level techniques, and we don't have the face to learn them? What we really need to think about is what he said just now, and the indomitable momentum he showed when he threw the dart. Martial arts experts are extraordinary and can't be measured by common sense. Arrange for everyone to train freely today. Everyone should carefully ponder what he said today. Whether you can understand it or not will depend on fate. I hope our people can fight for their dignity. Qin Guang returned to his room and laid on the bed, playing with the idea he cheated from Old Man Tan. He also sighed. I want to be a sincere and upright person so much, but fate makes fools of me, forcing me to be a scammer. Hao Kai was in a good state today, so he managed to muddle through. Is Brother Qin Guang here? At this moment Xuelin's voice came from outside. Qin Guang jumped down, opened the door and pulled Xuelin out. Let's go, take me to the intelligence department. Wait, Brother Qin Guang, wait. The leaders at the police special training area heard about what happened here and want you to go there to give them a lecture. I know you want to investigate people, but it has to be at the police special training area. Okay, let's go. The two walked a few steps and Qin Guang found that Xuelin kept looking at him with a strange expression. Why are you looking at me? To be honest, Brother Qin Guang, you look very handsome in a military uniform. Save it, don't fool me. I don't have the intention to be a soldier. AI. Xuelin sighed again. Why are you sighing? Xuelin hesitated and said, in a few days, I'm afraid I won't be able to be a soldier for the rest of my life. What do you mean? Nothing, let's go. Xuelin suddenly smiled and hid her troubled appearance in the bottom of her heart. Don't be mysterious. The two came to the police special training area side by side. Although it was also located in the special training camp of Shund, it seemed to be a completely different system from the outside. In addition to a slight intersection when entering and exiting, it was almost completely isolated. Qin Guang was not in the mood to visit it. Instead he asked Xuelin to ask where Wu Tong was and went straight to find her. As soon as they arrived at the door of the training room, they saw Wu Tong, who was wearing a suit and doing strength training. Without thinking much, Qin Guang strode into the door and said, Hi. Wu Tong jumped down from the equipment and intimately hugged Qin Guang. She asked, How did you come in? What's up with you wearing this? Nothing, I just came in. Qin Guang greeted her with a smile and looked up and down at Wu Tong. He hadn't seen her for a month and she had changed a lot. Her skin looked a little darker than before, but it didn't reduce her beauty at all. Her slightly drunk skin brought her a kind of healthy and sunny beauty. Of course, in the final analysis, it was because she had a good foundation. If a good-looking person had a dark spot, it was called sunny beauty. If a good-looking person had a dark spot, it was called bad skin. Her figure had also changed a little. Previously, she was healthy and beautiful with curves all over her body. After a few months of closed-door training, the parts of her body that should be big had become bigger. It should be because her muscles had become more solid, but her waist was still so slender. In contrast, her devilish S-shaped curve was even more obvious. Even though he was very familiar with her, Qin Guang couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He thought, is this sister's closed special training to train her figure? Before she said two words, Wu Tong suddenly covered her mouth, as if she had realized something very important. She quickly let go of Qin Guang's hand and sneakily pulled him away. Let's go, let's go. I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Do you want to die? Wearing this and sneaking in? If you get caught, it's a crime. Wu Tong. Who is this? At this moment, a strong man in a black vest suddenly came over and looked at Qin Guang with a vigilant face. Di Jiang, it's none of your business. Wu Tong's expression changed slightly. She pulled Qin Guang away. Unexpectedly, Di Jiang blocked the entrance of the training room. This is Xuelin, I know, but as far as I know, he doesn't have the qualifications to enter our police special training area, right? Although he has some privileges in Shund, we have our own rules. Isn't it too much to bring someone in? Where's the discipline? Mind your own business. Go and practice. Wu Tong said stubbornly. Di Jiang keenly sensed Wu Tong's nervousness at the moment. He became aggressive and said, We're in a closed special training area. It's a confidential unit. I have reason to suspect that you're engaged in espionage. As Di Jiang made a fuss, more and more people gathered in the training room and looked at Qin Guang unkindly. Xuelin had a headache. The situation didn't seem right. Qin Guang was also puzzled, but he quickly felt relieved. Inviting him to be an instructor was decided by the leaders of the special training area. The so-called elites who were undergoing special training didn't know about it. Besides that, Qin Guang also noticed that there were at least dozens of men in the huge training camp other than Wu Tong. There were only 2 or 3 female police officers, but their appearance was on a completely different level from Wu Tong's. This meant that Wu Tong was a red dot in a sea of greenery. As long as one wasn't blind, they would pay attention to Wu Tong, who was so outstanding. Coupled with the hostile and vigilant look in Di Zhang's eyes when he looked at him, this bro had definitely fallen in love. Qin Guang was right. Wu Tong was straightforward, and her personal strength wasn't any weaker than the male police officers. She was single and unmarried to the public, so her popularity in the training camp had always been high. Among the police elites in the special training area, there were more than 1 or 2 who had feelings for her. Among them, Di Zhang was the most obvious and fiercely pursued her. Di Zhang's ability was outstanding, and his family's social status matched Wu Tong's. However, because he was in the special training camp under military management, he had been suppressing his feelings in his heart and hadn't really confessed. He was waiting for the end of the training to be the first to launch a fiercer and more direct attack. Today Qin Guang had hugged Wu Tong in public. How could he not be anxious? The other people who gathered around might not have acted as outwardly as Di Zhang, but Wu Tong was the flower of the police force. No matter whether this young man was a real soldier or not, or how he got here, they couldn't let him have a good time. Don't even think about snatching food from the tiger's mouth. Di Zhang, have you had enough? Get out of the way. Wu Tong shouted anxiously. Chapter 543. She became angry out of humiliation. Looking at Wu Tong, who was like an angry lioness, Di Zhang and the other male police officers felt extremely uncomfortable. Wu Tong was a straightforward person. She was usually careless and could be regarded as heroic in the entire police special training area. However, her character was definitely not rude. It could only be said that she did not care about trifles. She usually never argued with others and was well known for being easy to talk to. But today she actually became angry with everyone because of this young man in military uniform. The relationship between these 2 people must not be simple. Di Zhang's heart was filled with hatred. This hatred could only be called endless. No wonder Wu Tong had completely ignored all the hints and flirtatious glances he had thrown at her in the past month. He previously thought that she was unromantic, but today he knew that she already had someone in her heart. He was not reconciled. He then turned his face and looked at Qin Guang fiercely. The more he looked at him, the more he couldn't understand. This guy was obviously not a real soldier. Where did he come from? Xuelin's white was a slightly sickly white because of his special body that the sun could not leave black marks on his skin. However, his face still had the signs of being exposed to the sun during training. But this guy, although he looked a little darker than Xuelin, he did not look like a soldier who had been exposed to the sun. He was definitely a young master of a rich family. He looked like a dog in military uniform, but how could he deceive us, the police elites who were famous for our keen observation? The more Di Zhang thought about it, the angrier and angrier he became. He did not care who came first. He only regarded Qin Guang as an outsider who wanted to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, the only bright scenery in the training camp. Fortunately, he still remembered his identity as a public official. If it was someone else who was as angry as him, he would have already punched him. It was not easy for him to barely restrain himself. Qin Guang was blocked by Wu Tong and looked at Di Zhang with great interest. Then he turned his head and looked at the others who were also looking at him with hatred. He thought to himself, if I am not careful, I will be like a tiger in a pack of wolves. You people should be a little more conscious. The one standing in front of you is Wu Tong's nominal younger brother, but in reality she is his god brother. Don't treat a bean bun like a dried vegetable. I haven't said anything yet and you're already stepping on my face? Sister Wu Tong, stay out of this. Qin Guang took a step forward and gently pushed Wu Tong to the side. He stood in front of Di Zhang and raised his head to look at the dark-skinned man. He was a head shorter than Di Zhang, but he didn't lose in terms of aura. Alright, you can move aside. Whether I'm a spy or not is not up to you. How I got in is none of your business. If you don't want me to do something, I'll do it anyway. Truth be told, if Qin Guang were to bring out his title as the chief instructor of darts, even if he couldn't scare them to the point of peeing their pants, he could at least get them to calm down and consider what's going on. After all, they're all adults, not kids. Besides, he was brought in by Xuelin. Even if it was against the rules, it was not up to the students to deal with it. The discipline department would deal with it. Di Jiang was still suppressing his anger. He opened his arms and blocked the door, refusing to budge an inch. This guy is really stubborn. Qin Guang pinched his chin. You're an old man. Don't act like a little kid, okay? Look at how angry you are. I feel ashamed for you. It reminds me of my friend who stole my lollipop when I was 5. Qin Guang's repeated provocation finally made Di Jiang explode. He glared at him. Are you done? Qin Guang still looked calm. I haven't said anything yet. Aren't you the one who has been throwing a tantrum? Do you need me to find a mirror to help you see how childish you are now? As he spoke, he turned his head and put his arm around Wu Tong's shoulder. Sister Wu Tong, I really thought you were practicing your skills in some closed special training. Turns out you're in a kindergarten. Is this the so-called elite of the police? Di Jiang's breathing gradually quickened. He was about to lose control. In fact, he understood everything. Of course, he knew that he was being unreasonable. But he just couldn't swallow it. His mind kept replaying the scene of Wu Tong and Qin Guang hugging each other affectionately when they met. Now he saw him put his arm around Wu Tong's shoulder in public. His lungs were about to explode. The string in Di Jiang's mind snapped. He swung his fist at Qin Guang's face. He looked like he couldn't wait to punch Qin Guang to the ground. Wu Tong was shocked at first, but she immediately calmed down. She didn't panic at all. Xuelin was about the same level as Wu Tong. She knew Qin Guang's strength very well. Maybe Qin Guang would be defeated by Di Jiang in other military skills. But in terms of fist skills, 10 Di Jiangs might not be a match for Qin Guang. Di Jiang looked like he had lost his mind because of anger. But when he swung his arm, he was very alert and looked at Wu Tong's expression. He thought to himself, you'd better come up with some melodramatic plot so I can make a fuss. During the closed special training, you let your boyfriend sneak into the special training camp. Such a serious disciplinary problem is enough to make you two suffer. With Wu Tong's background, it might not be a big deal. But her little boyfriend, no matter who he was, would have a good ending. But why doesn't Wu Tong look nervous at all? Doesn't she know how hard my fist is? There's no reason. Bang. While Di Jiang was puzzled, his fist was pinched by the fingers of Qin Guang's left hand. He tried to exert force forward, but he couldn't move at all. The scene at this time looked very strange. Di Jiang was maintaining the posture of exerting force forward. His movements were standard and his body was stretched, which was very convenient for him to exert force. The muscles and veins on his right hand were bulging, full of power. But Qin Guang's right hand was behind his back, and his left hand was raised in a Z shape in a very awkward way. His back was straight and his body was as steady as Mount Tai. His left hand seemed to be holding a balloon lightly. How could it be? Di Jiang roared in his heart. What the hell does this person do? He looks like a pretty boy, but what the hell is his strength? Is he a monster? Big question marks kept appearing in Di Jiang's heart. When he looked at Qin Guang again, his eyes were a little strange. He's really a spy. Everyone, let's do it together. Catch him. Di Jiang growled while clenching his teeth. Only a series of muffled roars came from his mouth, and blue veins as thick as a little finger spread from the bottom of his neck. Qin Guang still didn't move a single inch. Although the others felt that Di Jiang seemed to have gone a bit too far, it seemed like it was not the time to help reason and not help family. Moreover, just now Qin Guang had called Di Jiang a little brat, which made these colleagues who had been with Di Jiang day and night for the past few months feel unfair for him. You're not an old man, you're just a little brat who still smells of his mother's milk. Where did you get the big face to flaunt your seniority here? Therefore, everyone looked at each other and moved forward one after another. They were really going to make a move. All of you stop. Wu Tong's almond-shaped eyes were wide open. She was completely infuriated. Xuelin also didn't care about any discipline issues. She slightly bowed and got into a fighting posture. All of you save it. You don't have guns. What right do you have to fight me? Right at this moment, Qin Guang suddenly grinned. He suddenly exerted force in his hands. He was going to make a move for real. How could the strength of his Qilin arm be compared to that of an ordinary person like Di Jiang? He didn't seem to explode, but Di Jiang uncontrollably clenched his right fist. The next moment, Qin Guang's left hand grabbed Di Jiang's fist tightly. His right hand stretched out like lightning and pinched Di Jiang's waist in the shape of a claw. He exerted force in both of his arms at the same time. Get up. Di Jiang struggled with all his might and waved his hands and feet, but it was useless. His whole body was lifted up horizontally by Qin Guang like a piece of wood. Whether it was his right hand or waist, it was as if they were tightly clamped by a machine. He was in excruciating pain, but he couldn't break free. Get lost. Qin Guang shouted again. Di Jiang, the muscular man who weighed more than 100 kilograms, was thrown out like a shot put. He flew more than 10 meters and landed on the sports cushion with a bang. Even though he landed on the cushion, he was still spinning in the air until he was dizzy. He felt waves of tearing pain coming from his waist and spine. He didn't know whether his injuries were serious or not. Can this farce end now? Next time I should directly throw you out of the window. Who else? You can come up and try. After throwing Di Jiang away, Qin Guang looked around. His tone wasn't particularly arrogant. Reality proved that louder people didn't mean they were powerful. The other police special training area students looked at each other awkwardly. They didn't know whether they should go up or not. Di Jiang's individual strength ranked at least in the top 3 among the people present. His pure strength was the best among everyone, but he was thrown away like a toy without the slightest resistance. Moreover, his opponent had obviously shown mercy. Di Jiang had landed on the cushion from such a long distance. His control was so precise that it could only mean that his strength was comparable to Di Jiang's. There was no doubt that he had crushed Di Jiang. What are you guys doing? Just when the elite police students were in a difficult position, a stern shout came from outside the training room. Everyone turned their heads and looked behind them. They saw 3 or 4 middle-aged men in uniforms walking quickly behind Old Tan. The one who shouted was a lean middle-aged man beside Old Tan. Qin Guang curled his lips indifferently. Fine, they're finally here. I haven't had enough yet, but it looks like I won't be able to fight anymore. Di Jiang had already jumped up from the cushion. He rushed out and complained, Director D, this person is of unknown origin. He illegally snuck into our place. I suspect he's a spy. Director D? Qin Guang raised his eyebrows. No wonder Di Jiang was so fearless. He was the local tyrant here. These 2 people both had the surname D. If they weren't his father, then they had to be his relatives, right? Chapter 544. He couldn't help but feel a little dull. Then he looked at Wu Tong and Xuelin beside him. The future of the motherland was indeed the world of the 2nd and 3rd generations. It was so difficult for a child of a poor family like the old man to get ahead. Slap. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man with the surname D raised his hand and gave Di Jiang a slap. The slap left a blank expression on Di Jiang's face, and a red handprint appeared on his black face. Director D shouted angrily, Unknown origin my ass. Di Jiang, where is your basic judgment? Did you waste the past 2 months training on dogs? Where is this place? This is Shun's special training camp. Have you ever seen an idiot spy who swaggers in a military uniform to be a spy? Whose IQ are you insulting? What's wrong with your brain? Do you know who you are humiliating? You are humiliating the entire Chinese police system. Di Jiang covered his face and his mind was completely confused. His uncle really didn't save him any face. Apologize to Instructor Chen right now. Instructor Chen is the chief instructor of the darts course that our Shun special training camp has just hired. It took me a lot of effort and General Tan to invite him here. Is this how you welcome me? Director D looked at Di Jiang with a little anger. Although he scolded him severely, he had found a way for him to step down. Di Jiang turned around with a red face and bowed slightly. Instructor Chen, I'm sorry. Other elite trainees also looked at Qin Guang with a blank face. They couldn't believe that this young man was actually the chief instructor. In the entire Shun special training camp, there were only 5 people who could get the title of chief instructor. Among these 5 people, 2 were from the police force and 3 were from the military. Each one of them was a well-known figure in the outside world. They were all famous people who used blood and fire to fight in extremely dangerous missions again and again to gain their fame. How could this young man be the chief instructor when he came? We have never heard of him. Wu Tong was also stunned. Although she knew that he was very good at fighting and his personal strength was so strong that he could even fight against the world's 97 people by himself, she hadn't seen her good brother for only a month. How could he become the chief instructor? Did he take a rocket to the sky? I'm sorry, Xiaochen. It's because our communication wasn't smooth that caused you to misunderstand. But don't worry, we definitely don't have any other intentions here. General Tan was also a little embarrassed. He came up and apologized again and again. He thought to himself, it wasn't easy for me to bluff a real chief instructor. He was already reluctant when I agreed to Director D's request. Now that I'm in a hurry to send him over, your students are making things difficult for my chief instructor? What if he runs away in anger? Where am I going to find him? I'm sorry, Instructor Chin. It's all my fault. I apologize for the displeasure I have caused you. Apologize to Instructor Chin right now. Director General D also came over and lowered his head, looking very ashamed. After he was done, he even turned around and glared at the other police cadets behind him. Qin Guang was puzzled. Aren't these two a little too much? There was no reason for it, but he felt that something was wrong. Although I'm using the title of your chief instructor, I'm just bragging on the stage. What I'm doing is misleading the students under the guise of chief instructor. It's impossible for me to teach anything real. These two are too attentive. He smiled at the police cadets who were apologizing in unison and told them that it was fine. However, he was feeling very suspicious in his heart. Although he wasn't very clear about the level of Old Man Tan and Director General D, he could guess even if he used his toes to guess that these two were big shots. There was no reason for them to be so humble in front of him. Therefore, I have reason to think that these two people have ulterior motives towards me. Could it be that they are interested in me? Qin Guang leaned slightly against the wall and stuck his butt against the wall. An incomparable sense of security slowly enveloped him. Everything was stable now. Fortunately, Instructor Qin is magnanimous and didn't argue with you. Go and call everyone to the field. Gather in 10 minutes to receive Instructor Chen's special training. Oh right, Wu Tong and Xuelin don't need to go. You are Instructor Chen's assistants. He had no idea what Qin Guang was thinking about. Director General D waved his hand and arranged things. Little Qin, you're really a young talent. It's the country's great fortune to have you teach us everything you know. On the other side, General Tan's face was flushed with excitement. As he spoke, he grabbed Qin Guang's hand and slapped it back and forth. Qin Guang was shocked. Old veteran. Don't mess around. This taste is too strong. I can't accept it. I really didn't expect it. It's really... Old Man Tan said and wiped his tears. To be able to see the military elites master martial arts that are comparable to inner force in my lifetime, I, Tan Zhaohua, did not let down the old leader who gave me the heavy responsibility. Even if I go to the underworld after I die, I will still have the face to see the predecessors and martyrs. Qin Guang's eyelids lifted. Wait, what? What did I just hear? Mastering martial arts? Don't scare me. Someone really learned it? Impossible. He felt like he was listening to a fairy tale. I don't even believe it myself. Seeing Qin Guang looking at him in shock, Tan Zhaohua thought that Qin Guang was feeling uncomfortable from his crying, so he calmed his emotions and said, I'm sorry for making a fool out of myself. I was too emotional in my heart and I couldn't control myself. It's fine, it's fine. It's not worth General Tan's attention. Qin Guang had a myriad of questions in his heart, but he couldn't ask them. After all, he was the one teaching the special training class, so he couldn't possibly ask others if their people had succeeded. Otherwise, wouldn't that be a huge scam? Tan Zhaohua didn't notice Qin Guang's awkwardness at all. Instead, he held Qin Guang's hand even more excitedly. This isn't the power of Weibo. It hasn't even been 2 hours since little Qin started your special training class. There are already 3 people who suddenly had an epiphany just like you said. Qin Guang's eyes widened. What the F***ck special training has an effect. There are actually people who can learn something. Don't scare me. He was speechless. No wonder Old Man Tan and Director D respected him as if he was a god. If someone really mastered it, they would explain everything. If it were him, the two of them would also kneel. This. He didn't know what to say. Little Qin, your great kindness. Tan Zhaohua couldn't stop. Xuelin was really embarrassed by the old man's snot and tears. She also noticed that Qin Guang was in an awkward situation and quickly came to his rescue. General Tan, don't be too excited. Since Bro Qin Guang has taken the position of chief instructor, he will definitely do his best. Qin Guang also silently withdrew his hand from the old man's and wiped his cold sweat. Yes, I actually didn't do much. It's nothing more than the master leading the way. The cultivation is up to the individual. They were able to have an epiphany because of their own hard work and talent. What kind of epiphany did those 3 people have? Who were the ones who had an epiphany? As the chief instructor, I'm very flustered and uncertain. Can we not dawdle here? Hurry up and let me see them. If he didn't take a look, Qin Guang wouldn't feel at ease. As the so-called chief instructor, he was completely clueless about how his first batch of trainees had become talents. Finally, about 10 minutes later, he saw the 3 so-called disciples who had an epiphany in the police special training area. He felt a little uncomfortable. Looking at the greenish-gray glowing faith threads above their heads, he felt a little tired. What the hell? In the afternoon, the 3 of them had an inexplicable epiphany. Their worship and faith in him had obviously exceeded a certain limit. Even the white pillar of faith above their heads had undergone a qualitative change. It was no longer as simple as becoming thicker and thicker, but it had changed color. The color of the faith value thread changed from pure white to green-gray. It was no longer as thick as before, as if it had been condensed, becoming as thick as a hair. However, it still emitted a misty glow. Looking over, it looked like a faded rainbow was hanging on the foreheads of the 3 people. Was this the new world after a single person's daily production of faith exceeded 100? Does that mean that I've started the post-fan era because of a freak combination of factors? The era of my believers is about to arrive? Li Dazue, the 3 of you find the furthest distance that you think you can maintain your accuracy. Try a few moves. Qin Guang waved his hand and gave the order. A few hundred police students looked over curiously. Li Dazue from the kitchen was ecstatic. Chief instructor, you know me? Qin Guang nodded. I know you're from the kitchen. Alright, you guys can go. The strongest among his first batch of believers was actually Li Dazue from the kitchen. He alone had a daily production of more than 130 points of faith. 10 points more than the other 2. How much of a fool did you have to be to suddenly awaken in the art of darts? I understand now. A chef who doesn't know how to throw darts isn't a good special forces soldier. Li Dazue's furthest distance was 50 meters. The other 2 were slightly worse, but they were still more than 40 meters. Qin Guang was relieved. Although they had completely surpassed the concept of a normal person, they still couldn't be compared to the old man. They wouldn't go so far as to starve the master to death. He silently drank a mouthful of water to calm himself. He felt that he had a new understanding of the mysterious potential of humans. The 3 of them had pushed the power of their beliefs to the extreme. I had told them to be absolutely confident, but they had really numbed themselves to the point of blindness. They had continuously hypnotized themselves in their subconscious and used their blind obedience to me and my words to make them achieve what I had said, grasping onto some kind of mysterious Tao. As believers, their faith was extremely fanatical. Perhaps in addition to the fact that their skills were beyond ordinary people, they had finally achieved this miracle. For example, Li Dazue, who was in charge of the kitchen, was said to be able to cook dozens of people's dishes in one pot. His arms were definitely not simple. They must be steady and heavy. Qin Guang touched his mouth. Under the old man's so-called pithy formula, their faith and bodies produced an incredible chemical reaction, and then they went against the natural order. In addition to these 3 people, Qin Guang also took a trip to the world in the cup. He found that in just one afternoon, the total production capacity of the darts god statue had increased by more than 3,000. Evenly distributed to everyone, it was 3 points per person. This had simply broken a new record of per capita faith value production. Perhaps when a few more devout lads like Big Mouth Li appeared in this group of people, the production capacity would soar even higher. Qin Guang couldn't help but smile. This was going to be rich. The group of police cadets, including Di Jiang, were completely dumbfounded. Before this, they had suspected that the so-called chief instructor was just making empty promises to save face. In the end, after hearing the changes in the 3 of them in one afternoon, they were all shocked. Did this guy have magic that could turn stone into gold? Why did it sound so sci-fi? Regardless of anything, Qin Guang's reputation as the chief instructor of Shun's darts training hall was even more solid than steel, with Li Dazue and the other 2 as examples. Chapter 545. During the second special training, Qin Guang was already very familiar with it. He followed the same pattern from before and lied. Thanks to his 100 years of acting as a charlatan in the Sea of Time, old Master Guang's acting skills were barely passable. Although he himself felt that this forced act of metaphysics was very out of place, very strange, and he had goosebumps all over his body, but these people, including Old Tan Director D, believed in this. Because it really worked. About an hour later, Qin Guang finished another special training session in the police special training zone. Then, accompanied by his two assistants Wu Tong and Xuelin, he decisively ran away with the excuse of mental exhaustion. The three of them sat in Qin Guang's dormitory staring at each other. The atmosphere wasn't right. Qin Guang gave Xuelin many looks, but her brain actually short-circuited and didn't understand Qin Guang's meaning. "Brother Qin Guang, is there sand in your eyes?" Xuelin scratched her head, confused. Wu Tong rolled her eyes. "Xuelin, it's not that there's sand in Qin Guang's eyes, it's that there's pebbles in your brain." "Sister Wu Tong, why are you scolding me for no reason?" Xuelin was even more confused. Qin Guang sighed inwardly, reflecting on whether he had treated Xuelin too well. "Little Xue, the weather outside is so good and the scenery isn't bad. Don't you want to go out and take a look?" "How can I? I'm Brother Qin Guang's assistant. What if you need me for something?" Xuelin said stubbornly. Qin Guang turned his face away. "I don't want to chat with a retard like you." He silently gulped, suppressing the urge to beat someone up. Suddenly, there was a change in the police elites undergoing special training. Unfortunately, perhaps because they had too many distracting thoughts, not a single believer appeared. The hundreds of them added up to only a few hundred points of faith. This was to be expected. There were still some differences between the police and the military. Just as he was sighing, there was a sudden movement in the statue. There were 2 more believers who could produce more than 100 per day. That's good. It seemed that his Right Chin International Stunt Academy really had to be put on the agenda. Look at these people, look at these believers. Putting everything else aside, he had only trained less than 2,000 people today, and his production rate had skyrocketed by more than 4,000 points of faith. If he could make use of Old Tan to promote this special training to the entire country, wouldn't he be able to earn a few million faith points every day? How many soldiers and policemen would there be in the country? Wouldn't he be able to earn millions of faith points every day? How spectacular would that be? At the thought of this, he was so excited that his whole body trembled. Suddenly, 2 cold snorts came from the bottom of his heart. It was Luli. Hee. "What are you laughing at?" "It's nothing. You can slowly dream on your own." "Hey, don't just say half of it. Why are you asking so many questions? In any case, you'll naturally know when the time comes, so there's no point in telling you in advance." Lu Li impatiently tossed out a sentence before falling silent. Qin Guang always felt that he had been tricked again, but Lu Li didn't say anything, so he couldn't do anything. "Forget it, I've been injured by Lu Li, so I need to act tough in front of outsiders to recover." Qin Guang put down the cup, coughed lightly, and said to Xuelin in a muffled voice, "Xuelin, go out and see which 2 people had an epiphany again." He finally found a suitable reason to send Xuelin away. Xuelin wondered, "This Brother Qin Guang, how did you know?" Qin Guang only smiled mysteriously. "Buddha said it can't be said. Young man, when one day you and I are in the same realm, you will be able to understand the mystery. Right now you are still too weak." "What the hell?" Xuelin scratched her head and walked out, confused. After waiting for a while, he ran back with a strange look on his face. "There are really 2 people who can hit the dart from a distance of 30 to 40 meters. One is a police student and the other is a cook in the kitchen." He was really puzzled. Qin Guang had been sitting in the room from the beginning to the end. How did he know that there were people outside who had an epiphany again? And it was very clear that there were 2 people. This was too metaphysical. Qin Guang nodded as if he had already known it. But in his heart he thought that it would be too much if there were no believers among the hundreds of police officers. Fortunately, there was someone who could take care of it. "Well, your special training will probably start tomorrow afternoon. Now I don't need you as an assistant. Go out and find a quiet place. Sit with your legs crossed, 5 hearts facing the sky, clear your mind, and get rid of all distracting thoughts. Go to bed on time at night and continue to meditate when you get up tomorrow morning. Adjust your state of mind and body to the most perfect state. You see, today you and those police students and the soldiers in the special training camp of Shund attended my special darts training class. More or less 5 people benefited from it, but you didn't move forward. Xuelin, you let me down." Qin Guang lectured Xuelin in a righteous manner. Xuelin really blushed and lowered her head in shame. "I let you down, Brother Qin Guang." It doesn't matter. Maybe it's just fate. You go to meditate first. Since he had already pretended to be a fraud, of course he had to go all the way. Qin Guang stood up slowly and waved his hand as if he was giving advice to the country. Xuelin nodded repeatedly and quickly left. As soon as Xuelin left, Qin Guang rushed to lock the door as fast as lightning. He turned back and smiled at Wu Tong like a thief. Wu Tong was amused by his look. Hey, what are you going to do? Qin Guang rubbed his hands and approached Wu Tong with a smile. He wanted to pounce on her directly, but he felt that something was wrong. Indeed, when he was injured, Wu Tong had wiped his body. She had seen everything that she shouldn't have seen. At that time he was accidentally sent into the world of Qilin's arm. When she came out of the shower, she saw the scene of him going out. The relationship between the two had indeed gone beyond that level. But after not seeing each other for a long time, he couldn't just take advantage of her. It was too vulgar and might make her feel uncomfortable. Yes, I am a man with manners. I can't be dominated by my lower body. So he put away the creepy smile on his face and calmly sat next to Wu Tong. Nothing. I haven't seen you for a long time. I'm happy. It's good. Don't mess around. This is the special training camp. I don't have the guts to play around with you. Besides, you're too young to know the value of quality. You have to take care of yourself. If you have a weak kidney, you have to get better before thinking about it. For now, you better behave. Qin Guang's eyes widened. It took him a while to realize that in Wu Tong's mind he was still a young man with a weak kidney. Didn't Sister Tang Ying tell her? No. Qin Guang slowly recalled one night when he and Tang Ying were sitting side by side in her dorm room watching porn. Tang Ying was so tired that she almost broke her hand. She seemed to have made him swear not to tell anyone about it. So Sister Tang Ying definitely didn't tell Wu Tong that he didn't have a weak kidney. I'm still the scapegoat. This is a huge misunderstanding. Chapter 546. The owner of the most powerful pile driver in history was actually mistaken for a young man with kidney deficiency. This was even worse than Daoist, okay? I'm not weak anymore. I'm really not weak anymore. Sister Tang Ying's medicine is quite effective. For the sake of welfare, I'll admit this illness, but I've already been cured, okay? What integrity. Let's scatter like birds and beasts. Wu Tong's face lit up. It was obvious that she was also looking forward to something. Back when she was taking care of Qin Guang in the ward, she refused to take her hand out. It was Qin Guang who forced her to take it out when his but couldn't take it anymore. Sister Dirty Tong had never been an ordinary person. But she immediately shook her head. I don't believe you. You must be lying to me. I've asked around. Kidney deficiency is a disease that comes and goes like a landslide. How can it be cured so quickly? It's only been a month and it's completely cured? Qin Guang was furious in his heart. Can't we talk properly? I've already accepted my fate. You won't even let me recover? Can't you just let me live? No, it's not like that. He struggled on his deathbed. Wu Tong put on a straight face and looked into his eyes seriously. You know I'm doing this for your own good. Really, don't be anxious and don't force yourself. It's not the right time yet. You know I really want to, but I have no choice. I have to be responsible for the rest of your life. I can't let you get seriously ill just because I want to feel good. Otherwise, how can I face your parents? I'm your sister that they've acknowledged. We have plenty of time in the future, okay? Qin Guang looked at her silently. What you said makes sense. I really can't refute it. But give me a chance to prove myself. Well, how about this? Let me touch through your clothes. I definitely won't put my hand in. This joke is too old. I've heard it so many times that my ears are getting calluses. After half an hour of negotiations, Qin Guang finally chose to give up. On the other hand, Wu Tong had already steeled her heart and refused to budge. She even looked as if she knew that Qin Guang was trying to quibble with her. In the end, she even said that it was fine to take advantage of him, but it had to be done in the presence of a famous doctor like Tang Ying. Her best friend, Miss Tang Ying, had to personally tell her that Qin Guang had fully recovered. Only then could she rest assured. If anything went wrong, Tang Ying would be able to adjust the treatment plan according to the premature ejaculation and treat it as a treatment. Qin Guang felt like the rest of his life was ruined. There was no way Tang Ying could testify for him. She had said that no one was to mention it, especially Wu Tong. Tanging might even add insult to injury. At the thought of this, Qin Guang felt that his future was filled with darkness. Can't we give them some benefits? If it were any other woman, Qin Guang would never speak so boldly. However, Wu Tong was different. When the two of them were in the ward, she was too aggressive. When they met for the first time today, Qin Guang was still a little restrained. But when the two of them were alone and chatted for a while, Qin Guang was pleased to find that his cheap sister still had the same familiar temperament and personality. He was also looking forward to something. The little devil in his heart was slowly playing tricks. Don't you want to investigate someone? It's almost dinner time. If you don't go now, they'll get off work. Wu Tong said as she got up and walked out. Qin Guang sighed. Forget it, let's get down to business first. The two of them walked out of the dormitory and easily entered the special police training area. They went straight to the office building behind. They didn't even need Wu Tong to tell them. Now that Qin Guang's face as the chief instructor was enough to sell, it wasn't a problem for him to investigate the residence of an ordinary family of 3 in Beijing. 10 minutes later, the two of them walked out of the office building side by side. Wu Tong said, "If you want to find someone, go ahead. Don't be impulsive and hurt him. I've investigated your family once, but I couldn't find any clues. It's not that simple." Qin Guang nodded. "I understand. I have to go back to the dormitory. After all, this is still the closed training period. I can't hang out with you all day." Wu Tong said as she was about to leave. "Oh yeah, when will your training end?" Wu Tong thought about it. "I'll probably go back when school starts. But by then I'll be the bureau chief of Wenxing. You can do whatever you want in Wenxing in the future. I'll protect you." "Of course." Returning to his room, Qin Guang flipped through the script while pondering about that family's matter. They're clearly here for a vacation and they got off the plane the day before yesterday. Their return flight was 4 days later, and they've also booked a hotel room for 7 days straight. So after he dealt with Xiao Shuizi's matter tomorrow, he would pay that family a visit. It was terrifying to think about it. Under the powerful intelligence system of the state, the personal information of these ordinary families had no privacy at all. Not to mention their whereabouts, even their call records for the past 6 months could be checked. Although they were not the focus of attention and there were only phone messages and no specific call recordings, it was enough to completely expose their family relationship. Unfortunately, nothing suspicious was found. There was another thing that made him very unhappy. There was no information on Wenwen in the entire intelligence system. Wenwen's home address, family relationship, and everything else seemed to be on the opposite end of the spectrum from the other family. One was completely exposed to the surveillance of the state, and the other seemed to not exist in this world at all. Comparing the two, it only made people's hearts go cold. Qin Guang did not know if it was because of the interference of too much power that Wenwen's information was blocked or something. Logically speaking, Wenwen should also have a household registration and identity card. Otherwise, how did she register for this university? "Sorry, the number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. Please try again later." Qin Guang silently hung up the phone. He had heard this voice so many times in the past few days that he could almost recite it by heart. "Wen, where the hell did you go?" He did not want to admit it, but he was really starting to panic. After lunch the next day, Xuelin came to Qin Guang's dormitory as promised. "Brother Qin Guang, I'm ready." Qin Guang nodded. In the morning he had already asked Liuli about the specific method of paying faith points to activate the pseudo-cup world. "Take off your clothes," Qin Guang ordered. Xuelin jumped back and her pale face instantly turned red. Is there a hole in your brain? I didn't ask you to take off your clothes." "Hey, have you really made up your mind? As I said, your chance of survival is 37%. This data is absolutely true. Of course, if you can successfully survive, your fist strength can reach 500 kilograms. Xuelin's eyes flashed with a resolute light and she nodded heavily. "Thank you, Brother Qin Guang, for helping me. I have made up my mind." 5 minutes later, Qin Guang picked up the heavenly holy grail and slowly poured the full cup of water from top to bottom on Xuelin, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor. He then turned around and walked out of the room, closing the door and guarding outside. The 600,000 faith points that had just been accumulated in the heavenly holy grail were quickly emptied. In Qin Guang's mind, the entire room behind him was enveloped in the familiar power of the heavenly holy grail. Since then Xuelin's consciousness had completely fallen into a deep sleep and entered the mysterious pseudo-cup world. Chapter 547. Whether he could survive depended on 30% chance, 30% luck and 40% willpower. About half an hour later, heart-wrenching screams gradually came from the room, making Qin Guang, who was guarding outside, feel distressed. An hour later, a middle-aged man accompanied by General Tan walked in quickly with a gloomy face. He asked, "Is Xuelin inside?" Qin Guang nodded, "Yes." "Let me in. I'm his father," the middle-aged man said as he tried to push Qin Guang away. Qin Guang stopped him. "If you want to kill him, you can just barge in. I won't stop you." "What the hell is he doing?" Xuelin's father looked at Qin Guang fiercely. Qin Guang looked at Xuelin's father. From the military uniform, this middle-aged man's position didn't seem to be lower than General Tan's. But Xuelin said he wanted revenge, but he didn't mention his father's power from the beginning to the end. Thinking about it carefully, there must be some meaning that he didn't understand. Maybe there was something that was difficult to say. Such a military family would always have some difficulties that ordinary people like him couldn't understand. It was the so-called people in the temple can't help themselves. So Qin Guang thought about it and said, "He is doing what he chose, I just gave him a chance. Mr. Xue, please calm down." Xuelin's father looked at Qin Guang even more fiercely. "Do you want to say that if anything happens to Xuelin, you will do that to me?" Qin Guang raised his eyebrows. Tan Zhaohua pulled Xuelin's father hard. "Xiao Xue, calm down. This was really Xuelin's decision. I have a letter here, he asked me to pass it to you." Qin Guang was the chief instructor of Shun's special training zone. He had proven his ability and contribution with real results. Old Tan didn't want to see any conflict between Xuelin's father and Qin Guang. Xuelin's father took the letter. There were only a few lines on it. It was the name of his comrade who had sacrificed himself at the border and a simple sentence. "Blood feud is as deep as the sea. Even if I die, I will not regret it. Don't blame Qin Guang, your son has made up his mind." The father understood everything in an instant. He silently put the letter into his pocket and looked at the bedroom door. The screams inside did not stop, but the anger and worry in his eyes gradually disappeared. After a long time he slowly nodded at Qin Guang. "I've heard about your story. On behalf of the military, I thank you for your generosity. I also thank you for helping Xuelin. Regardless of life or death, I, Xuezhan, will always be grateful to you." Qin Guang nodded. "You don't have to thank me." He also took a risk. Xuelin's screams lasted for a full 5 hours. Finally, at midnight, the door was brazenly opened. Xuelin shakily walked out from inside. Everyone turned on the lights and saw that the floor of the room was full of shocking black blood stains. Xuelin's whole body, especially his arms, was covered with blood. It looked very creepy. He raised his head to look at the crowd and suddenly smiled. His hands rubbed each other's shoulders and the dark brown scabs fell off, revealing the skin that was as good as new. "Brother Qin Guang, I didn't let you down. I made it through. Although I don't remember what happened, I did carry it through." As he spoke, a shining green thread of faith value flew from the top of his head to Qin Guang. Qin Guang was stunned. "I'm stunned. One person can produce more than 1,000 faith value a day." The fanatic. At the cost of 600,000 points of faith, he forcefully gave Xuelin the heavenly Holy Grail pseudo-cup world training, allowing him to have 500 kilograms of fist force. Then he actually became a fanatic who gained more than 1,000 points of faith a day. This is a big business. A good business that can return the cost in 2 years after one investment. That was why Luli was so annoyed. As a cheat, she didn't play by the rules at all. "Shouldn't you have told me about such a great benefit earlier? Why did you have to make me try it myself to find out what the effect would be? This cheat is really incompetent." Qin Guang complained in his heart. "I'm sorry, I'm not a cheat for you to masturbate. I'm just a poor goddess locked in this broken cup. Like what you encountered today, I didn't know either. I've already said that you're a lab rat. Do you know what a lab rat is?" "Alright, you don't have to say anymore. I understand. But there's bad news I can tell you." "Is it very bad news?" "It's not particularly bad. Anyway, you'll naturally know." "Then please don't say it. Let me slowly understand it with my heart. Goodbye." While Qin Guang was joking with Luli in his heart, Lin ran to the bathroom next door to take a shower. When she came back, she was no longer in her military uniform. Instead, she was wearing a black singlet and casual pants. Lin looked at her father timidly but didn't say anything to him. She turned to Guang and said, "Brother Guang, I can already feel the incredible power in my arms. In the future, I owe my life to you. I have to go. If I can come back alive, my life is yours for the rest of my life. If I don't come back, please forgive me. I'm a lowly person who only knows how to accept kindness but can't repay it." After saying that, he turned around to leave. Guang looked at him with a complicated expression. His breathing gradually became rapid. Guang didn't know much about the World Shatter. Even though 7 members of the World Shatter had died in his hands, he didn't know what kind of people they were. He didn't know the purpose of their gathering and what they wanted. However, from the names Shur 8 and Shur 9, it was clear that they didn't have a particularly high status in the broken world. Otherwise, they wouldn't be nameless and could only use numbers as their code names. However, there was no doubt that Shur 8 and Shur 9 weren't weak. Back then, Guang had also barely defeated Shur 9. However, Lin planned to kill his way into the Broken World's headquarters alone. Even though he had extraordinary strength like the shrunken Qilin arm, he was still courting his own death. However, Guang couldn't persuade him. He could only help him this much. The Broken World wasn't a bunch of hooligans playing house. They were a powerful assassin organization. When fighting against these people, he had to consider all aspects of military skills. They wouldn't foolishly stand on the spot and fight with their fists. If they could kill you with a gun, they definitely wouldn't use a knife. Even though Guang's fists were strong, he had never learned how to use a gun. His marksmanship wasn't good at all. He didn't even know how to disengage the safety. It was fine if he used a dart to deal with a few people, but to follow Lin to attack the assassin organization's base? That would only be a burden to him. "Lin, stop right there," Xian shouted. "Do you know what it means for you to leave like this?" "I know." Lin stood at the staircase but didn't turn back. "This is a complete violation of the rules. You are disobeying orders. You will become a stain on our Shui family." Xian clenched his fists tightly. Lin waved his hand. "Dad, it doesn't matter if it's a stain or a violation of the rules. You know me. You want me to be a coward? I can't obey such an order. Just because of international concerns, I have to swallow my anger when my men die? I don't want to follow this rule either. My brothers died in their hands. It's only right and proper for me to avenge my brothers. Don't worry, I will only do this in my own capacity. I will not cause any trouble to any of you. From now on, I will no longer be a soldier. If necessary, I will no longer be your son. Even if it's like hitting a stone with an egg, I will break a tooth of the world breaker." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin had already trotted down the stairs. Xian was trembling all over. Tan Zhaohua asked him, "Do you want me to call a few people to stop him?" Xian shook his head tiredly. "No, it's useless." Looking at his sad father, Guang didn't know what to say. Xian turned his face, wiped his eyes quietly and said, "Actually, I understand Lin's mood very well. I was like this when I was young. Anyway, I have to thank you, Guang. You seem to have given him a special ability. It shouldn't be worse than those who awakened the dart skill in Shun's special training camp, right?" Guang nodded. "The level is indeed higher. I don't know if Uncle Wu has told you about my fist strength. Now Lin has 2/3 of my fist strength. 500 kilograms. Exactly. That's good, that's good." Xian sighed with a smile on his face. Originally, he was bound to die, but because of your help, he at least has a chance of survival. I'm really grateful to you. If it weren't for you, he would have gone alone a few days ago. Xian said very seriously. Guang nodded. "I also know this, otherwise I wouldn't have taught him." Guang didn't know what kind of fate awaited Lin. He just made himself do the right thing at the right time, and worked hard to help a young man who was willing to give up his life for the sake of revenge for his comrades. That night, Guang took a bus from Shun back to Yanjing. He still had his own things to do. The people responsible for driving him were still Qian Ming and He Zi. Unlike when they left, the two of them could be said to be respectful to him. Although Guang was the same as Qian Ming in terms of administrative rank, the title of chief instructor was respected in Shun's special training camp. Guang didn't go back to his hotel. Instead he asked Qian Ming to send him straight to the hotel where the family was staying. You guys go back. Instructor Chen, do you need any help? Qin Guang thought for a moment, then shook his head. Not for the time being. If there is, I will contact you. Thank you for your kindness. No one could find out the inside story of the case. The public security organ in Lilai County couldn't find out, Wen couldn't find out, and even Wu Tong couldn't find out using her special channels. Today, no matter how stupid Qin Guang was, he should know that behind the hot pot poisoning case, there was an 80% to 90% possibility that it was related to an inner strength person. In a sense, this poisoning case was the same as Wenwen's family information. It completely jumped out of the scope of the intelligence of the state apparatus, and belonged to another level. Qin Guang even faintly felt that perhaps all the relevant personnel responsible for investigating this case in Lilai County and even in Xiang City didn't investigate the case at all, but they were covering it up. You can hide it for a while, but you can't hide it forever. From now on, let me personally unveil this dark curtain and see what kind of amazing things are hidden underneath. Striding forward, Qin Guang had a harmless smile on his face, walked into the hotel lobby and slapped the UBS black card on the counter. Please give me a room. Today my lucky number is 7, I prefer 12. Please give me suite 712. Chapter 548. Dad, let's go shopping at Wang Fujing department store tomorrow? Late at night in the room, the young man was happily trying on clothes. He had bought a lot of things this time in Yanjing. He had done well in the college entrance examination, and his family had received a large sum of money, enough for them to spend freely. Ever since he came to Yanjing, he felt that he had transformed from a high school student who only knew how to read books to an adult who lived a life of debauchery. There were only 3 words in his mind. Buy, buy, buy. You only know how to buy things all day long. Don't you know how to save money? You'll spend all your money in a short time. What if you want to study abroad? His father seemed a little angry. He looked at the dazzling array of things on the bed and felt a little pained. It was really expensive for young people to buy things these days. Any set of clothes with hooks would cost 2,000 or 3,000. The family had gone to a concert and the tickets had cost 7,000 or 8,000. Thinking of the scene at the concert, his father had a vague premonition in his heart. How did that family's child suddenly soar into the sky? In the past, he seemed to have heard from his son that the celebrity he liked had a boyfriend called Qin Guang. At that time he didn't think much of it, thinking that it was just someone with the same name. But when he saw that kid standing on the stage and flirting with such a big star, he was really shocked. That kid shouldn't be short of money now, right? Maybe he wouldn't care about a mere 800,000? When the father thought of this, he looked at his son with a slight heartache and sighed. He really didn't know why the Qin family was so lucky. They could still make a comeback despite being so down and out. Fortunately, Qin Guoli was a generous person. Otherwise, his hometown people would not be able to survive in Lilai County. The mother glared at the child's father. Stop talking. It's not easy for us to get this money, but it's all earned by our son. He can spend it however he wants. Don't interfere. Besides, our son is so capable. Even if he wants to study abroad, it will definitely be at the government's expense. We can just pay for his living expenses. It won't be that difficult. The child's mother looked at the high school student kindly and patted his head. It's been hard on you. The high school student chuckled. It's okay. I just couldn't get out of bed for a month. I had a lot of fun playing games these days. Our son is still the best. His grades haven't dropped even after lying at home for so long. The mother was full of praise. All right, stop praising him. It's getting late. Go to sleep, the child's father ordered. Mom, do we close the windows at night? Although the air conditioner is on, it still feels stuffy. The high school student asked. Don't turn it off. It's more comfortable if it's on. Anyway, we've already paid for the room. Their central air conditioner doesn't consume electricity anyway, the child's mother said casually. The high school student nodded and happily returned to the room next to the suite. The couple lay on the bed in silence for a while. The man suddenly said, I don't know why, but I'm afraid that Qin Guang will come looking for trouble with us. The woman patted his head. You're always so busy and afraid of this and that. Now that Qin is rich, a few 100,000 is nothing. Besides, we're not the only ones who cheated him of his money. There are many of them. He can't just look for us, right? But our Xiaoyang was the most poisoned at that time. The man was still uneasy. The woman pinched his waist harshly. It's been so long. Even if Mr. Qin comes looking for trouble with us, we can still deny it. What's wrong with not letting him recover after being poisoned? What can he do to us? Besides, I don't even know how this happened. It was our Xiaoyang's leg that inexplicably shrunk, and then inexplicably recovered. Let me tell you, those businessmen are all heartless. It must be Qin Guoli who bought the poisonous mushrooms. Actually, it's not like that. You shut up. Would it kill you to speak less? Sleep. I don't care what happens, I just want to sleep now, I'm so sleepy. It's already over. Don't tell me you want me to spit out the money? It was late at night and the woman gradually closed her eyes. The man was lying on the bed looking out the window with his head tilted. He looked at the night sky outside through the window and thought silently, why can't I see stars in the sky of Yanjing? The man's eyelids gradually sank. They had strolled around Badaling during the day and bought a lot of things. His family was indeed exhausted. Suite 714 fell into silence. 5 hours later at 5 o'clock in the morning, Qin Guang pushed open the door of Suite 712 next door. The young man who had just graduated had a good sleep. Even in his dreams he was looking forward to the big shopping tomorrow. Tomorrow he would be able to buy the DSLR that he had been eyeing for a long time. Including the lens and the body, it would cost about 40 to 50,000, but that was not a problem. When he entered university with his photography and post-production skills as well as the DSLR, it would be very easy for him to sneak into the cosplay club. When that time came he would really be happy just thinking about it. With his family's income, normally they would not allow him to squander like this, but that 1 month of effort was worth it. Just as he was fantasizing about that scene in his dreams, drooling all over his pillow and smiling so hard that his face was almost crooked, his whole body turned cold. In his dreams he suddenly fell from heaven on earth into a bone-chilling cold pond. His whole body quivered and the young man slowly opened his sleepy eyes. I had a nightmare? What happened? The lights in the room had been turned on at some point. At 5:30 in the morning his brain was still a little groggy, and the blurry figure in front of him gradually became clear. When he finally saw the person standing next to his bed he rubbed his eyes thinking that he was seeing things. Qin Guang. Qin Guang casually threw the basin on the floor. You know me. The young man seemed a little surprised. He thought he was dreaming. How could the Qin Guang in this dream still speak? He pinched his thigh again. You are not dreaming, you are already awake. Qin Guang's face completely collapsed in an instant. I have a lot of questions to ask you, and I am not in the mood to dawdle with you. The young man's mouth gradually opened wider and wider, as if he was about to scream. In the next second his neck was violently grabbed and his whole body was lifted up easily, and he was pressed against the wall, unable to move. Seeing that he still wanted to scream, Qin Guang grabbed a pillow with his right hand and covered his face forcefully. The young man could only make muffled sounds. If you don't want to die, you'd better behave yourself. I have a lot of questions and you'd better cooperate with me. Otherwise, I will directly throw you out of the window. At most, tomorrow's news will be a high school student committing suicide by jumping off a building because of a broken-up relationship. These words, of course, were only said by Qin Guang to threaten the young man, but he knew that the young man would definitely believe him. The young man gradually stopped struggling. When Qin Guang put down the pillow his eyes were full of fear, but he really did not try to call for help. He only twisted his neck in pain and softly and hoarsely said, Qin Guang, don't be like this. Ask me anything, I will tell you everything. When he spoke his whole body was trembling. Qin Guang frowned. This young man was more cooperative than expected, which was not good news. The more cooperative he was, the more it meant that he knew less. Casually throwing him on the ground, Qin Guang crossed his hands. My family's 800,000 yuan, are you happy with it? It's not like that. All right, this question is meaningless. I just want to ask you, what's going on with your leg? Tell me everything you know in full detail. 10 minutes later, Qin Guang looked at the young man with a slightly distressed look. From the young man's frightened eyes he could not see any signs of lying. Could it be that this young man really didn't know anything? After the hot pot poisoning case his leg muscle inexplicably atrophied and after a month, it inexplicably recovered? This was a human's leg, not a balloon that could be deflated and inflated by blowing on. Xiaoyang, what are you doing? Go to sleep early in the morning. Why are you turning on the lights? At this moment, there was a knock on the door and a middle-aged man's voice came from outside. The high school student's face changed, and just as he was about to open his mouth to shout, Qin Guang glared at him fiercely, telling him to cover his mouth and not make a sound. Immediately, Qin Guang opened the door and with lightning speed, stretched out his hand and grabbed the middle-aged man outside by the neck. Since you're here, it's just right. Qin Guang. As soon as the middle-aged man saw Qin Guang, he panicked and whispered in a low voice. This man has a guilty conscience. Qin Guang looked at the man's flickering eyes with surprise, but also a hint of relief as expected. Qin Guang was already certain in his heart. It was right to take the initiative to find this family. As the head of the family, these things should be decided by him and he knew more. It's me. You should know why I'm here. I'm not in a good mood right now, so you better not try to hide it from me. Qin Guang was already tired of the muddy water. He grabbed the young man called Xiaoyang's ankle with one hand, and stuffed half of his body out of the window. This was the 7th floor. If he fell from here, there was no other possibility other than being minced meat. Qin Guang turned his head to look at the father. Since you've done it, you have to be mentally prepared to bear the consequences. You should have known that there would be such a day. The father's face instantly turned pale and his lips trembled. In fact, when he watched the Qin family rise again, he was worried that they would settle the score after the fall. But he did not expect that it would be Qin Guang who would personally take action, and it was so sudden, and he did not expect that Qin Guang would hate them so much. If he went through the normal legal channels, his family would really be able to get away with it and refuse to admit to it, but they could not stand against him not following the rules and personally taking someone's life. Although the Qin family had a good reputation in Lilai County, and Qin Guang's father knew that Qin Guang might be bluffing, he didn't dare to gamble. After all, this was his son's life. Half of his body was hanging outside, but Xiaoyang did not even dare to call for help. He was very regretful. His family must have been noticed by Qin Guang after watching the concert. Otherwise, how could he have come at such a coincidental time? If he had known earlier, he would not have gone to the concert. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. The middle-aged man knelt on the ground with a plop. Qin Guang, I beg you, don't hurt Xiaoyang. I can return the money to you, please. Qin Guang shook his head. Do you think I care about this bit of money? Stop joking. This is your last chance. Don't play the fool with me. Usually he was easygoing, funny, witty and silly. People could joke with him as they pleased as long as they did not humiliate his family or take advantage of him. He would not easily get angry with others. However, today was different. Thinking of what had happened to his family over the past year, he was on the verge of exploding at any time. Okay, I'll talk. Can I talk? Chapter 549. Unexpectedly, the interrogation time for this man was even shorter than that of the high school student. In less than 5 minutes, Qin Guang carried his backpack and left the hotel. The man quickly explained the ins and outs of the matter. It turned out that when the incident happened at the hot pot restaurant a year ago, the family's son actually did not have any major problems. He was only weak for 2 days, but he slowly recovered after resting at home. However, on the 3rd day after the incident, the man was stopped on his way home from work. At that time, the man touched the back of his neck and lost consciousness. When he came back to his senses, he was already dragged to a remote mountain. The man threw him 2 bottles and told him one thing. When he went back, he was to mix the contents of one of the bottles with water and let his son drink it. Don't be surprised if anything happens in this month. After a month, he was to mix the contents of the other bottle with water and let his son drink it. His son would be able to recover to his original state. At first, of course, the father refused. Who knew what the man wanted his son to drink? However, at that time, the man wrapped in black cloth broke a tree as thick as a bowl with a backhand slap in front of him. It wasn't a simple fall but a complete break in the middle. The man also said, "Whatever I tell you to do, you must do it honestly. Otherwise, the next time you are dragged here, I will dig a hole and bury your whole family." The other party's threat was straightforward and effective. This honest man was not a daring person. What happened next was naturally the atrophy of his son's leg muscles. Under the hint of the man in black, he went to the Qin family, which was already in a terrible state, to cause trouble. Anyway, the court had already sentenced a lot of money. When Qin Guoli saw the family's son's legs, he was too lazy to appeal. 800,000 it was. Anyway, there was no need to worry about the debt. The man did not know the identity of the man in black. The man also had no idea what his son was eating. Obviously, this family was just a tool used by someone else. However, Qin Guang already had an idea. To be able to break a tree trunk as thick as a bowl with one slap, there was no other candidate other than an inner strength user. However, the thing that the young man ate was too magical. His legs were so sick, but he said it would be fine. This was completely unreasonable. What could it be? Qin Guang couldn't figure it out no matter how he thought about it. He asked Lioli, but Lioli only scolded him. Did he really think that she knew everything and knew everything? Qin Guang was depressed. He could only let his imagination run wild. Why would a person who knew internal strength find trouble with his family for no reason? Why would he go through so much trouble to save the country and use such a family to make things difficult for his family? He even felt that apart from this family of three, the other compensation awarded by the court as well as the poisoning of the hundreds of people in the shop, were most likely related to this man in black. He sat on the bench in the Yanjing City Park until the sky was bright, until the sun rose and there were drops of dew on the tip of his nose, but he still did not understand the reason behind it. Could it be because of my relationship with Wenwen? Wenwen's betrothed fiancé doesn't like me? It can't be so ridiculous. Besides, with Wenwen's personality, if she really got involved with me and brought me such trouble, she wouldn't be indifferent and wouldn't tell me. Moreover, with the strength and means of people like Wenwen, if they really had such a huge grudge, they could have easily and neatly killed their entire family. Why would they need to go through so much trouble? Wasn't poisoning and framing people like taking off their pants to hit a fart? The more he thought about it, the more question marks appeared in his mind. Why are you sitting here? Why are you in a daze? What are you thinking about? Suddenly, a clear female voice rang out behind him. Qin Guang stood up abruptly and looked back at the girl. The bright red morning sun slowly rose behind her. The gentle sunlight passed through the forest and trees in the park, sprinkling on her back and his face, making him feel warm. She had cut off her long hair and replaced it with short hair that was only the length of her index finger. Paired with her close-fitting white shirt and cropped pants, she looked like a tall tomboy. She had a very sweet smile on her face, hiding the tiredness in her eyes. On her shoulder there was a knife hilt about a foot long. It was obviously under the soft morning sun, and the air was fresh and humid in the park. But from her body, there was a heart-palpitating murderous aura. But the smile on her face was so gentle and beautiful. The strong sense of incongruity made Qin Guang slightly dazzled and vaguely uncomfortable. But in his heart he let out a long sigh of relief and felt lost. It was Wenwen. They hadn't seen each other for more than a month, but it seemed like years. He had known her for 3 years. In the past he was used to her calling him and leaving him at her beck and call. He was like a fool who became the campus belle's best friend. He had to bear all kinds of criticism and comments when he walked with her in school. But this was not important. Qin Guang had never cared about the dirty thoughts of others. He just subconsciously felt that she was his bro, and it was none of their business that they liked to be together. They hadn't seen each other for more than a month, and they couldn't even contact each other at all. Qin Guang only felt a faint sense of unease in his heart, but he still had many things to do to divert his attention. But as time passed, he would always feel a faint sense of worry when he was walking or spacing out. He would silently think, where is she, what is she doing, and why hasn't she called me? Now that the matter between me and Jin Shuiwei is so big, even if she calls me to scold me, interrogate me, or even wish me well, it's fine. How can you not do anything at all? Didn't you say that after passing the 4th level, you would fulfill your promise with me? I've done it now, but where did you run off to? He almost thought that he was going to lose Wenwen. This feeling was very strange. They clearly weren't lovers, and it seemed that after being together for 3 years, they didn't seem to develop in that direction. But once the thought of losing her really surfaced in his mind, Qin Guang always felt as if a rib had been pulled out of his body. Until today, when they suddenly reunited after a short period of losing contact. Looking at Wenwen, who had a long sword on her back and was reflecting the morning sun, Qin Guang suddenly realized that he actually missed her so much. Perhaps that's not right. In other people's world, I haven't seen her for more than a month, but in my world, 100 years have passed. I'm thinking of you. Is this a reunion after 100 years? Qin Guang thought to himself, perhaps I don't have the right to say such things anymore. Some things have already happened between me and Teacher Zhou, and with Annie from the sea of fleeting time and again. Fortunately, she and I are still brothers. Wenwen raised her hand and knocked on his head. I know, that's why I'm here now. Qin Guang looked down at his phone. There are still 8 days before the results of CET4 are announced. Really? My sense of time is a little bad these days. When I saw you, I thought it was already August 20th. Wenwen walked up. Let's go play the Sword Tower. Why can't we just play the Sword Tower when we meet? Qin Guang was unwilling to be dragged away by her. He always felt that they could do something more romantic. Such a good place, such a good time. Wenwen laughed. Because other than this, we don't seem to have anything else in common. I also don't know how to play the piano, drive, throw darts. It seems so. Hey, you know all about it? Of course. Then why didn't you call me? You have too many questions. Why do you care so much about me? Anyway, I have nothing to do in the internet cafe, so I just read the news. Qin Guang was even more confused. Internet cafe? You don't pick up the phone, don't reply to QQ, and don't reply to messages in the app. You just stay in the internet cafe and watch the news? What are you hiding from me? Qin Guang stopped and looked suspiciously at Wenwen's back. Indeed, it was a long sword with a hilt of 1 foot and a blade of 1.5 meters long. There was a faint smell of blood in the air. It seemed to be coming from her sword, but it seemed like an illusion. He sniffed carefully but couldn't smell anything. It was extremely strange. If you ask again, I'm leaving. Wenwen turned her head and looked at him with a straight face. Even though she had short hair, even though she looked like a tomboy, her extremely exquisite facial features were still as beautiful as a creation from heaven under the reflection of the rising sun. It was breathtaking. I won't ask any more. Qin Guang shook his head helplessly. Wenwen grinned. That's good. Oh yes, it's my turn to ask you something. What is it? Just say it. Between me and your Jin Shuiwei, who is prettier? Nonsense, you've never compared who is prettier with anyone in the past, okay? Why would a tomboy compare who is prettier with a woman? Besides, Jin Shuiwei and I are not in that kind of relationship. That was an act, really. I want to be a lady today, can't I? Yes, you can. Then let me ask you, who is prettier? Really? More real than gold and silver. I'm happy. You've become a good mother. I'm not used to it. The shadows of the two of them stretched out under the sunlight and gradually disappeared into the distance. Qin Guang had no idea how Wenwen found him, but she refused to say when he asked. Qin Guang also felt that there was something wrong with her, but she still refused to say it. Who would believe that the Gokyo University's heartthrob Wenwen had a rare reunion with her best friend, the nation's Prince Charming Qin Guang, thousands of kilometers away in Beijing, and actually went to a small internet cafe in the suburbs to sit. When she was applying for an internet card, she took out her ID card from her bag. Qin Guang, who was wearing a mask, glanced at her and vaguely saw a thick stack of cards with the same color as her ID card. All of them are ID cards? He was even more confused. He silently took out one of his privileges as the chief instructor of Shun's special training zone. A fake ID card to apply for an internet card. He didn't hide his doubts for long as he quickly threw himself into the intense and exciting rehearsal. In fact, Qin Guang was also speechless. I'm a famous person and you're a goddess. It's rare for us to meet, but instead of doing something important, you actually went to sit in an internet cafe. There's no mood at all. If word got out, wouldn't we become the laughing stock of 10,000 people? But he was ultimately modest and upright. When the game really started, he was still unable to extricate himself from the team battle. After a long time, the national server's heavenly ladder was once again stirred up a storm of carnage by the killer couple. It was a day that all the high-level players didn't want to think about. The first god 10,000 and the other famous ID of the Chinese server had reappeared after disappearing for a long time. The two of them had swept through all the black shops and the field was littered with corpses. The long-awaited feeling of fighting side by side with them lingered in Qin Guang's heart. He simply put aside all kinds of weird thoughts and put his heart and soul into the game. For the whole day, the two of them only played the dominant lane. It was either Qin Guang supporting Wenwen to carry, or Wenwen supporting Qin Guang to carry. There were a few times when Qin Guang wanted to switch to the mid lane, but Wenwen wouldn't allow it and forced him to play the dominant lane. Alright. You have the biggest breast, so you decide. Do you want to touch it? You can pass level 4, right? Of course I can. Let me tell you my current English. Alright. I know you're good. How about I let you take advantage of me tonight? Wenwen chuckled and shrugged her chest, her face full of mischief. Qin Guang squinted at her, swallowed hard and looked at his watch. It's already night. Get lost. It's only 4:30 in the afternoon. Is that so? My watch is a little fast. Chapter 550. Stun him. Hurry up and throw the hammer. Qin Guang yelled. Wenwen, who never made a mistake, actually made a mistake. The opponent made an obvious mistake, but she was half a beat slower and couldn't keep up with the control skill. She only reacted when Qin Guang yelled at her, but it was already too late. Qin Guang chased halfway and saw that the opponent had already entered the tower, so he had no choice but to retreat. He turned his head and looked at Wenwen in confusion. However, Wenwen stared at the screen without blinking. Don't turn your head, the crown will fall. Level game, serious Dota. Qin Guang didn't look at her anymore and turned his head to continue cutting wood. Actually, Wenwen was distracted. She was thinking about a lot of things just now. He was very confused. She didn't know what she liked about Qin Guang, or whether she really liked Qin Guang. She just felt that she was very relaxed when she was with this person. From the first day she met him, she felt that when she was with him, the ice wall hidden in the depths of her heart seemed to become air, and she was completely unrestrained. Wenwen even felt that when she was with Qin Guang, she was not the same person as usual. So the two of them formed a very strange combination in Gokyo University, the goddess and the loser. The other female students in the dormitory also asked her, "What are you trying to do? You two are not compatible at all." In the past, Qin Guang's family was quite rich and he spent money extravagantly. Perhaps he could barely be considered a rich second generation. But Wenwen didn't look like someone who lacked money. His family was bankrupt, so why did she keep looking for him? He wasn't handsome, had no money, and his grades weren't that good either. Wenwen was really asked this question. She only smiled and said, "If you have to find a reason to make friends, then is this friend still real?" Actually, in Wenwen's eyes, Qin Guang was miles away from the standard of a handsome guy. She didn't even think about the question of whether he was handsome or ugly. Qin Guang had become a little more handsome in the past half a year, but the process was slow and subtle. Perhaps it was due to his body being tempered in the sea of transient, causing his figure to become better and his temperament to change. Or perhaps it was due to him controlling the sky-reaching Holy Grail for a longer period of time, which allowed him to learn more extraordinary techniques and become more confident. A person's appearance was a very mysterious thing. The same face at different times and in different mental states would give people different impressions. But no matter what, with their statuses, they should be living in a world that had nothing to do with each other. Apart from playing games together, the two of them spent most of their time chatting and joking around without a single topic. The life that she would face and the life that an ordinary person like him would live in, a muddle-headed life, were like two parallel lines that should never intersect. Even if they barely intersected by chance, they should be like two straight lines gradually drifting apart. But the strange thing was, in the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed, but the two of them were still together. The intersection of these two straight lines was a little too big, and they were all tangled up in a mess. She didn't understand what kind of state this was or what kind of feeling it was. Or perhaps with her personality she didn't want to get to the bottom of this matter. Since it was so comfortable to be with him, then they would spend every day together. As for the reason, who knew? This time, Wenwen originally thought that she would have to part ways with him forever. What she had to face was not something that could be resisted by humans, and everything could only be blamed on fate. But when she wandered aimlessly outside the park, she didn't know where her heart was calling from. It seemed that there was a voice and power in the dark that led her into the park, and then she saw him. Qin Guang didn't know how long Wenwen had been standing behind him, and what kind of struggle she had gone through in her heart. In the end, she put on an expression that said, "What a coincidence, why did I bump into you here?" and greeted Qin Guang. Then Qin Guang immediately accepted this inexplicable encounter with greater nerves. It was as if they were still at school and they had only not seen each other for a day or two, but the familiarity and warmth were still the same. Even though he was now a little different from before when Wenwen sat with him, the feeling was still the same as before, as if nothing had changed. Wenwen's mind recalled that when she teased Qin Guang before, he looked absent-minded. This guy was still not serious. Anyway, there was no better choice. Why not let him have it? Otherwise, there would be no more opportunities in the future, right? Wenwen gently rubbed her stomach. Waves of burning pain were gradually surging inside, and she didn't have much time left. On the other side, Qin Guang shouted again, "Big sister, you don't look right today. You look like an amateur." Wenwen pushed the keyboard, stood up and said, "A little amateur. Let's call it a day. Let's go." Even if you beat him to death, Qin Guang would never have thought that last night, when he was still thinking about where Wenwen was hiding, a whole day had passed in the blink of an eye. He had actually gone to a small hotel in the suburbs with her, and she didn't even need an ID card. What the hell is wrong with this world? Am I dreaming? He didn't come back to his senses until Wenwen went to take a shower and the sound of running water came from the bathroom. Qin Guang patted his face and held the heavenly holy grail in a daze. Felt so strange. Oh right, he had been particularly concerned about the knife on her back since this morning. It was just that she had been carrying it on her back and hadn't taken it off. She should be able to see the knife after taking a shower, right? Qin Guang jumped up and picked up the 1.8-meter-long narrow knife from the chair beside the bed. He remembered that when the two of them went to the internet cafe, Wenwen had tricked the boss into saying that this was a cosplay prop. The boss didn't quite believe her, and he didn't say anything when he paid 2,000 yuan for it on the spot. He weighed it in his hand. The saber didn't look thick, but it weighed at least 40 kilograms. He pinched the pitch-black handle with one hand, but he couldn't tell what material it was made of. It looked a little like wood, but there was a metallic coldness to it. Clang. With a light pull, the blade was revealed. Qin Guang's pupils shrank in an instant. He had indeed smelled blood for a short while before, but Wenwen seemed to have pressed the handle down a little so the smell didn't come out again. But at this time he had only pulled the knife out about a foot, and he could vaguely see that there were very small dried blood stains on the shiny blade. It seemed that she had wiped it in a hurry and didn't take care of it properly. The sharp edge of the knife glowed under the light. Qin Guang touched it lightly with his fingertip. He didn't even slide it. When he picked it up to take a look, the cuticle on his finger had already cracked. What a sharp knife. What happened to her body? Why would she carry such a domineering long knife stained with blood? This wasn't a decorative toy but a real killing weapon. Wenwen was a person who loved cleanliness very much. She had actually left a trace of blood on the blade. This was too abnormal. He was too stubborn. Even when she encountered such a big problem, she still hid it. No, even if she told me, I don't seem to be of much help now, right? He also felt dull. Wenwen didn't tell me, and it seemed that she was trying to protect him. Putting the knife back on the chair, Qin Guang sat on the edge of the bed in boredom. He listened to the sound of Wenwen taking a shower in the bathroom and then looked at the knife again. But there was not the slightest romantic feeling in his heart. All he could not get rid of was worry. After waiting for a long time, Wenwen finally changed into a set of pajamas and walked out. Her face had a strange redness. She looked at Qin Guang with shy but bold eyes. She gently pulled the collar of her nightgown and said, "Are you looking forward to it?" Looking at Wenwen's collar that was getting wider and wider, and the skin of her chest was slowly exposed in front of him, Qin Guang's throat was a little dry. He swallowed lightly and said dryly, "But the more it was like this, the more he felt that something was wrong. Her body was too red." Not only her face was red, but her neck was also red. Even the skin at the edge of her chest that was gradually exposed was red. Wenwen didn't give him too much time to think. She sat down beside him and grabbed his hand. "You're a tough woman. Since I said I'd give you benefits if you can pass level 4, I won't go back on my word. Come on." As she said that, she raised her head and closed her eyes. She grabbed Qin Guang's hand and slowly stretched it into her collar. Every part of her body was trembling and her eyelashes were closed slightly. She looked nervous and expectant. But Qin Guang suddenly stood up and broke away from her hand. "Enough." Wenwen opened her eyes blankly. What's wrong? Don't you want it very much? Qin Guang waved his arms angrily. I want it, but not in this kind of situation. I just want to know what happened to you now. I'm not thinking about it at all. I'm not in the mood now. Completely. Well. As he said that, Qin Guang got up and walked to the chair. He grabbed the long knife. Tell me what's going on with this knife? There's blood on it. What else can I do with you in this situation? Don't you see me as a brother? If a brother is in trouble, why don't you tell me? Hey, don't you want the benefits? Wenwen looked up at him angrily. Qin Guang wanted to reject her in an imposing manner, but he stopped himself before the words left his mouth. I still want the benefits, but not now. Is it so hard to get you to confess? Do you have to? Wenwen looked at him helplessly. Can you not ask about this? You know me. If I don't want to tell you, it's useless even if you ask 10,000 times. Then I'll ask 10,001 times. You have to tell me. Wenwen, let me tell you. I'm no longer a nobody. Although I don't have your internal force, I'm still very strong. Very powerful. Really? Equally powerful? Wenwen suddenly grinned. She suddenly raised her hand and punched Qin Guang's stomach. Qin Guang let out an "oh." He clutched his stomach and fell weakly onto the bed. He felt like his body was emptied. He had no strength at all. I don't think there's any difference. Wenwen stood up and grabbed Qin Guang's pants. She threw him onto the bed. Qin Guang opened his mouth slightly, but he couldn't say a word. He was filled with hatred. 99% of the old man's strength was in his hands. He didn't have the iron shirt on his stomach. He was plotted against. But this wasn't the end. Wenwen slapped Qin Guang's head again. She used a little internal force. Qin Guang didn't feel much pain. He just felt his head become heavy and drowsy. This style, this rhythm, it was so familiar. Before he lost consciousness, Qin Guang, whose head was on the pillow, shed 2 lines of silent tears. If he remembered correctly, this was the 3rd time. Is this old man's entire life a life of being continuously pushed back? I can't accept it. Can't you change the routine? Besides, Wenwen looks very manly today. This short hairstyle is too tomboy. I can't get used to it. Chapter 551. Sister Lioli, when do you think I can grow flower petals again? I'm so anxious. Lu Minghua, who only had half a stubble left, wriggled her body in vain in the small wooden house. Not to mention flower petals, she didn't even have a single leaf on her body. Lioli was typing on the computer with her forehead full of sweat. In this emperor's humble opinion, it's probably about 1,000 or 8 million years. Lu Minghua let out a buzzing cry. I can't accept this. It's all that useless Qin Guang's fault. Sister Lioli, you should control him. He wasn't putting in enough effort. Why is my life so bitter? Lioli rolled her eyes at her. You're blaming me? It's all your own fault for coming along with his god's wrath. Lu Minghua continued buzzing. But I didn't let him step on me and break me. This is all fate. Even gods have to accept their fate. Sister Lioli. Quick, look at that statue. At this moment, Lu Minghua suddenly cried out in shock. Lioli threw down the mouse impatiently. Little Lu, I'm busy with work. Don't disturb me, okay? It's not like this. The statue of that scumbag Qin Guang is shrinking. It's all shrinking. Look. Lioli's expression changed greatly. She flew up from the computer chair and flew straight to the city walls of Feiyun City. Floating in the air, she saw Qin Guang's alto statue, dart statue, and the Dota champion's shield. All these statues that took a lot of effort to obtain were like cotton that had been stripped of water. They shrunk at a speed visible to the naked eye. She panicked. Oh my God, what's going on? Lioli landed on the platform where Ding Ding's statue was. Forget it, this thing is so small that it can be ignored. She immediately went to the side of the Qilin's statue and reached out to touch it. After a short while, her expression changed greatly. What the hell, this isn't condensing. It's really disappearing. What's going on? It's like someone is absorbing this statue. If that guy sees this, he'll probably go crazy, right? Sister Lioli, look at what he's doing outside. I've already said that his idea isn't reliable. The Holy Grail is just an unlucky toy that he came up with when he went mad. It's just a half-finished product. Why are you going crazy with him? Why don't we just stay in the endless god realm and live happily as gods? Dear Cry began to complain again. Luli didn't respond to her. Instead, she released her true body of the Divine Emperor and looked up at the void above the sea of clouds. Her eyes, which were filled with divine power, seemed to be able to penetrate the barrier. However, after a long while she had no choice but to withdraw her true form. She sat down on the cloud platform and watched helplessly as the Kirin Arm God statue, which was originally over 2,000 feet tall, became smaller and smaller until it completely disappeared. The Holy Grail has sealed off my senses. I don't know what's happening outside. Scam. All of you are scammers. He was a scammer. You're also a scammer. Dear Cry continued to complain. Luli was a little depressed. I feel that I'm really not a competent God Emperor. When he comes in, he will definitely explode in anger, right? These idols are hard to come by. Then what's there to worry about? You can just beat him up and he'll feel better. Anyway, he'll believe whatever you say now. He's even cuter and more naive than you. Lioli's eyes lit up again. Say that's true. I just don't know when he'll be able to walk through the 3,000 worlds and let us out. About another 1,000 to 80 billion years? Opening his eyes in a daze, Qin Guang felt that his entire body was aching. His body was bare and a breeze blew in from the window, making him feel cold. His head was groggy and everything he saw was spinning. When he touched his head, there was a bump on the east side and a swollen one on the west side. It seemed that after he fainted he had even patched her up a few times. Are you crazy? I've already fainted, yet you still hit my head. It seems that this bed has become shorter than before. Struggling to get up slowly, he looked around and saw that this huge room was in a mess. The bed frame had become shorter out of nowhere, as if the bed's legs were broken. In addition, the bed sheets were gone, taken away by someone, and he was directly lying on the cotton wadding. Everything related to Wenwen in the room was gone, and of course she was also gone. She had left the room and no one knew where she went. Does this mean that after I forced her to sleep with me she ran away? What is this? The generation's prophet, the dignified Brother Guang, was actually irresponsibly abandoned after sleeping with someone. Shouldn't you have prepared a pot of bird's nest porridge for me to nourish my body? You've left me feeling very hurt by leaving after you've eaten your fill. He quickly got up, put on his clothes and took out his phone to call Wenwen. As expected, it was still the number you dialed, but the phone was turned off and he couldn't get through. He rushed to the window and looked into the distance. The small town of Xianxia was sparsely lit in the middle of the night, and it looked particularly bleak. How could he find any trace of Wenwen? I can't accept being abandoned in such a way. Qin Guang fiercely punched the window frame and he was extremely melancholic. Wenwen, who was carrying a long knife on her back, was limping through the forest. It wasn't that her foot was injured, but she rubbed her stomach with slight discomfort every 2 steps. However, her eyes were shining with an extremely bright light, and there was an extremely inexplicable smile on her face. It was unknown whether it was relief or complacency. Her mind was also blank and she didn't know what was going on. As she walked through the forest in a daze, her mind kept recalling what happened before. Her pace became faster and faster, and it seemed that the discomfort in her body was gradually disappearing. She thought to herself, that guy is really good at torturing even after fainting. I'm really going to die, I'm going to die. Are all men like this? I'm Wenwen. I'm the eldest daughter of the Wen family, and I'm the youngest genius in the entire Wen family in 100 years to cultivate inner strength to skin strength. Practicing martial arts is about the muscles, bones and skin. Muscles are the foundation, and to cultivate muscle strength is barely the entry level. To cultivate bone tendons is considered the entry level, and to cultivate skin strength is considered the entry level. As for the next level, it's called Wenzong in the Wen family, and it's a level that only those who have mastered inner strength in the body can achieve. I, who have skin strength, actually lost to Qin Guang, an ordinary person without inner strength, in bed. Oh my god. If I didn't rely on my inner strength and use all my skills to fight with him, I would really be defeated. I originally planned to get up and leave immediately after dealing with this guy, but in the end I forced myself to lie next to him for an hour before I reluctantly got up and ran away. In the middle, in order to prevent him from waking up, I had to stab his head every time he made a noise. This guy's head is almost like a Buddha's pineapple head now, right? I really don't understand why, I simply can't figure it out. There's no reason. Where's the bed? That little rundown-ins lady boss will scold him to death, right? This silly guy, I've let you take advantage of me so I don't feel guilty letting you get scolded. Suddenly Wenwen stopped and there was a numbing soreness in her lower abdomen. She stretched out her hand to hold on to the tree trunk next to her, and her face flashed with a touch of red. This bad guy, is this a bench drill or what? At this moment, Wenwen suddenly woke up and found a particularly strange thing. Her body, which was originally extremely injured, and her internal organs, which had been constantly burned by poison and other people's inner strength, actually didn't feel any discomfort. Previously she was in a panic when she ran away and only wanted to wait for death, so she didn't think too much about it. But now, after a long time, she finally found this incredible change in her body. Backhandedly stabbing the knife on the ground, Wenwen simply sat cross-legged and meditated. After a long time she opened her eyes with a strange expression and said to herself, "What the hell? I've recovered. This lady can't die." She got up, shuttled left and right in the forest and blasted palm after palm into the air, only making crackling sounds like firecrackers. Her movements became faster and smoother. The inner strength in her body no longer felt stagnant, and only felt that it was flowing in all directions. Condensed inner strength emerged from the depths of her dantian, and rushed to all parts of her meridians. The light in Wenwen's eyes also became brighter. Even if the change happened in her body, she still couldn't understand the injuries in her body that would have killed her just because she had sex with Qinguang. She recovered? What kind of high incense did I burn? Qinguang, you're the reincarnation of Tang Seng. Don't tell me you've eaten Tang Seng's high-protein food that can make you immortal? In the end, I'm the one who took advantage of you? Is the dual cultivation method real? Qinguang isn't an ordinary person, he's the successor of some hidden dual cultivation sect? I sucked away the pure male essence that he accumulated for 20 years? Oh, how can I do this? Wenwen was really ashamed but also felt ashamed to face Qinguang and also very embarrassed. Originally she planned to let this guy have sex with her and then die, and there was nothing embarrassing and shameful about it. Now she suddenly couldn't die. How could she face others in the future? I pushed down my good gay friend. She covered her face. At this time the inner strength that was surging around her body was still causing trouble. Usually she needed to deliberately meditate to mobilize the inner strength, but now it seemed to have grown legs, crazily rushing in her meridians like a centipede. Two faint cracking sounds were heard in the air. Young Lady Wen, who was embarrassed, suddenly shook her body. Several white streams of energy uncontrollably shot out from her back, easily piercing a few holes in the tree trunk next to her. Wenwen exclaimed in a low voice again, "The conception and governing vessels are opened." She couldn't care less about letting her imagination run wild in her heart, and hurriedly continued to sit cross-legged, feeling the shackles that had hindered her for several years. When the two barriers of the conception and governing vessels were inexplicably broken, she felt a painful and comfortable feeling in her body, and her expression was complicated. When she opened her eyes again, it was already bright outside. As Wenwen got up, a strong wind inexplicably rolled up from her body, blowing the leaves around her randomly. Not bad, she finally broke through the shackles of muscles, bones and skin, and set foot on the highest realm of the Wen family's martial arts, Wenzhong. Looking at the whole ancient martial arts world, now as the master of the Wen family's martial arts, Wenzhong of the generation, she was also a first-class top expert. In the entire history of the Wen family, there was only one master of Wenzhong every 100 or 200 years. But there was another thing that made Wenwen's expression strange. The inner strength in her dantian was inexplicably divided into 7 groups, arranged in the shape of 7 stars. In the records of the Wen family's martial arts, no one had ever mentioned that Wenzhong's inner strength could be divided into 7 groups. Forget it, if I can't figure it out then don't think about it. Anyway, there is no harm in this matter. In short, it must be related to Qinguang. Wenwen comforted herself with such a red face. I don't know if this guy will be happy to find the small book I hid in his backpack, but if he really is the successor of some dual cultivation method, he shouldn't be able to practice my inner strength, right? At this moment, there was a rustling sound in the distance and a figure could be seen. She held the long knife in her hand and looked at the swaying bushes in front of her. Her eyes focused and she said in a low voice, "Third uncle, you came a little late." Chapter 552. Fortunately, I'm not too late. I can send you on your way. A black-robed old man with a sinister expression and the eyes of an eagle suddenly flashed out from behind the bushes. He was 20 meters away and laughed loudly. His laughter was wild and unbridled, but his gloomy eyes were filled with dread as he looked at the long blade in Wenwen's hand. In the past half a month, many of his subordinates had suffered greatly under this long blade and turned into ghosts. But today this young miss of the Wen family should be an arrow at the end of its flight. The people he brought were also unprecedentedly sufficient. It was time to end this. As third uncle flashed out, more and more people stood out from all directions. But this was only the arrangement on the surface. Who knew how many assassins and martial artists were hiding and spying on them in the dark? Wenwen was calm in the face of this. She only narrowed her eyes as she looked at her once incomparably familiar and trusted third uncle. Endless disappointment and pain appeared in her eyes. In the end it had still come to this. Actually, I was just testing you. Before, I wasn't certain that third uncle was the mastermind. You really disappoint me. As Wenwen spoke, she grabbed the long blade. Her left hand gripped the scabbard, her right hand gripped the hilt, and she slowly pulled out the blade. Third uncle Wen snorted, "Don't be so naive. You've already come to this point and you still want to reminisce with me?" Wenwen shook her head. "I don't want to reminisce, I just feel regret." As she slowly pulled out the long blade, she looked around her surroundings. Her eyes gradually focused as she felt an unprecedented amount of internal strength slowly surging within her body. However, she forcefully suppressed it. If third uncle knew that she had become a Wenzong, he would probably turn around and run without any hesitation. Regret? Ah, what is there to regret? Winner takes all, it's only right and proper. Third uncle Wen suddenly opened his mouth and laughed crazily. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself and your father for being inflexible and being stuck in the same old ways. Who can you blame for falling to this state today? You only have yourself to blame. Wenwen raised her finger and pointed at the black-clothed and green-clothed people that were gradually surrounding them. She sneered, "A dignified member of the Wen family actually colluded with outsiders to harm your own people. Is this your ability? Isn't it better for us to be complacent than to invite a wolf into the house?" Third uncle Wen pressed forward. "Idiot. Stubborn. Foolish and ignorant. As long as I have the last laugh, what's the harm in borrowing external help or not? Are you the one who poisoned my father? You should go to hell and ask your second uncle yourself." "What? Second uncle is dead?" Wenwen's hand that was about to pull out the saber suddenly trembled. Uncle Wen grinned. "Of course. How could you be so ruthless?" Wenwen's lips began to tremble. It was clear that the news of second uncle Wen's death had greatly impacted her. Third uncle Wen finally tore off his mask. "Why can't I do it? I still don't understand why all the benefits should belong to you. Just because your father and second uncle are the eldest son? Do you think I, a concubine, deserve to be your slave since I was born? I've had enough. Look at what your good-for-nothing father has done to the Nian family. Even small fries like the Poison Clan and Dark Clan dare to abuse their power over the Wen family. Why do you think the Wen family has fallen to this state? Do you really think that your good-for-nothing father can protect you? If it wasn't for his incompetence, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to take advantage of you, and you wouldn't have been coveted by others. This is the biggest joke in the world." Wenwen was shocked. "What? Who's coveting me? Tell me." Third uncle Wen was already impatient. He only felt that Wenwen was stalling for time. Seeing that his encirclement was getting tighter and tighter, Wenwen was unable to escape even if she had wings. However, he simply waved his hand. "All right, enough nonsense. Hand over the Wenzong token. I, Wen Jingyun, have the final say in the Wen family. I, Wen Jingyun, will only listen to my voice. As for you, the so-called Missy, go to hell and accompany your second uncle. Don't worry, it won't be long before your good-for-nothing father comes down to reunite with your family." Faced with the encirclement, Wenwen gradually hid all the emotions on her face. "Let me ask you, who's coveting me? Also, there will only be one person's voice in the Wen family in the future. Unfortunately, it's not you. Also, third uncle, you've made a mistake. You're not a concubine. To be precise, you're not even a member of the Wen family. You're just a lucky person who was picked up from outside when he was about to starve to death. Only my father and I know about this. What? The secret that Wenwen suddenly revealed made third Uncle Wen's subordinates pause in their steps. Third Uncle Wen hurriedly shouted, "Don't listen to her nonsense. She's trying to sow discord. How can I not be of the Wen family's blood? Those who aren't of the same clan must have a different heart. A wolf's ambition is nothing more than this. I should have killed you on behalf of my father long ago. It's my fault that this has led to today's bitter outcome. I was too soft-hearted." Wenwen finally pulled out her long knife. She threw the scabbard away with her left hand and gripped the hilt tightly with both hands, holding it vertically in front of her. "Shut up. Don't you dare try to sow discord." Third Uncle Wen heard that Wenwen was becoming more and more serious. How could he calm down? "Sow discord? No, there's no need for that. You'll never understand the power of a Wenzhong realm cultivator. I want to kill all of you. There's no need to sow discord." As soon as she finished speaking, a powerful inner strength that belonged to a Wenzhong realm cultivator erupted from her body. It flowed through her entire body and directly passed through the conception and governing vessels that had already been opened. In an instant, bursts of energy surged out from her body. There was even a strong gust of wind that blew 2 to 3 meters around her. Feeling the energy surging out from Wenwen's body, third Uncle Wen's face suddenly paled. He then turned around in a panic, feeling as if the sky had collapsed. A thought crazily roared in his heart. How could she break through to the Wenzhong realm so easily at this age? This was impossible. He couldn't fight her head-on. Run. Previously he thought that Wenwen was stalling for time. Now he knew that Wenwen's plan was to purposely let him gather everyone so that she could kill them all. "You want to run?" Too late. Wenwen lightly tiptoed and her entire body pounced forward like lightning. The 2-meter-long blade slashed across and blood splattered 5 steps away. "Block her for me. Block her for me. Otherwise all of your families will die. Not a single one of you is allowed to run." While third Uncle Wen was shouting, he was running for his life. Those Wen family traders who came with him, one by one, showed a bitter expression and straightened their backs. Wenwen let go of all her mercy and brought out all her anger and killing intent. Dark red flowers of blood wildly bloomed in this forest. After learning of her second uncle's death, Wenwen completely let go of the shackles in her heart and released the darkest demon in the depths of her heart. Faced with third Uncle Wen's betrayal, faced with the fact that her father had been poisoned, faced with the news of her second uncle's death, and then thought of how she had been constantly running and struggling for her life for an entire month. From the moment she made her move, Wenwen's eyes turned red from killing. Her eyes became blood red. People were emotionless and the blade was even more emotionless. Her body transformed into a mountain spirit. Her steps were like a ghost, her sharp blade slicing through the air and cutting trees. Every time she swung her blade, she would either cut a fleeing rebel in two or cut the tree and the person behind it in two. A Wenzhong expert who had opened the conception and governing vessels, even if there was a slight difference in their cultivation, was like heaven and earth when compared to a skin-strength martial artist. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. Third Uncle Wen fled in panic. He used all his strength, but he could still hear the screams coming from behind him. Every scream represented a life being harvested. The red light of the rising sun shone over the small forest in the suburbs of Yan Kingdom. Birds flew away in fright and trees collapsed everywhere. The red light, the red blood, the green trees, the greenish-brown bark, and the yellowish branches that had been cut off. This part of the forest had been painted by Wenwen with blood and blade. Third Uncle Wen felt that his steps were getting weaker. It was not that he had run out of strength, but that despair was gradually enveloping him. He clenched the iron umbrella in his hand. This was the weapon that he relied on for a living, but he did not think that he could block a single strike from Wenwen. Her blade was too fast, too fierce, and too ruthless. Was this the power of a Wenzhong? It made people feel despair at first glance. It was difficult to resist and they only wanted to stretch their necks to be chopped off. But third Uncle Wen was still running. He looked at the mountain in the distance. That was his final trump card. Whether he could survive or not depended on this move. An hour ago, as expected, Qin Guang had given the innkeeper a good scolding. Fortunately, he had brought a lot of money with him. He decisively slapped the innkeeper's face with a stack of red bills, appeasing her anger. The cute innkeeper almost hung on Qin Guang. Not daring to delay, Qin Guang carried his backpack and ran. He was like a headless fly, he didn't know where to go. Wenwen didn't want to let him go just like that, but when she asked him where he should go to find her, he couldn't think of a way to find her. After wandering around Yen Kingdom for a while, he finally remembered that he was the chief instructor of Shun's special training camp. He picked up the phone and called Qian Ming. Qian Ming did not dare to delay and immediately transferred him to the Skynet Surveillance Center. Qin Guang gave his military number, and the Skynet Surveillance Center immediately turned the Skynet surveillance system that could be mobilized in this small town of Yen Kingdom. 15 minutes later, the highly efficient state machine finally gave him a piece of useful information. It was the general direction in which Wenwen had left. Qin Guang only needed to know the direction and then he would give chase. He plunged into the mountains. Since he had nothing to do, he would chase her for a day and search for her for a day. If he could not find her, he would accept his fate. Third uncle, stop running. Obediently stretch out your neck to be executed. Wenwen stepped on a tree branch and floated in the air. Wenzong's internal force made her as light as a swallow. She borrowed the force of the force and was extremely fast. Third uncle Wen felt a sharp pain coming from the back of his neck, but he endured the pain and fell forward on his back. He rolled on the ground and swung his iron umbrella horizontally, but there was only a clang and a flash of saber light. The iron umbrella was cut in half, and the weapon that had accompanied him for decades was cut in two. One half was still in his hand and the other fell to the ground. Wenwen, please let me go. I know I was wrong. He rolled on the ground and fell to the ground. Third uncle Wen's head was like a chick pecking wood, kowtowing desperately on the ground. Blood dripped down from Wenwen's long saber, leaving a long mark on her back. A little further, the road behind her was a mess. There were crooked tree trunks and broken limbs everywhere. Over 100 corpses were left behind on this 500-meter-long chase. Wenwen gently placed the blade on third uncle Wen's neck. Tell me, is there an antidote for the poison in my father's body? Who is coveting me? Who else is supporting you from behind? Chapter 553. If I tell you, you won't kill me? Third uncle Wen looked straight at Wenwen, his voice trembling, his eyes pleading. If I say I won't kill you, will you believe me? Wenwen asked him in return. Third uncle Wen shook his head. No. Then isn't that enough? If you tell me, I'll let you die more quickly, that's all. Be honest, otherwise I'll torture you to death. Wenwen's hand gripping the hilt of the knife slowly increased her strength. The heavy knife body carried the inner strength of her arm and fiercely pressed towards third uncle Wen. In an instant, the meridians in his body were completely sealed, cutting off any chance of resistance. Torture me, it's not bad to live a little longer. Third uncle Wen was suddenly not afraid, it was like a broken pot. He was sure that Wenwen was not willing to kill him, he was quietly waiting for his last chance of survival. Wenwen's eyebrows furrowed. She kept feeling that something was wrong. Her subconscious told her that it was best for her to kill her third uncle and quickly escape. However, she couldn't help but pay attention to some of the things he had revealed in his previous words. Along the way, Wenwen had never frowned. However, if she were to kill third uncle Wen now, then all the clues would be gone. She was not willing. Of these two people, one didn't want to die, the other didn't want to kill, it was exactly what they wanted. Third uncle Wen silently counted the time, looking at Wenwen in front of him with a seemingly fearful but actually proud expression. Indeed, she had inexplicably become a master of the Wenzong realm, catching him off guard. The strength of a Wenzong was indeed terrifying, it was simply beyond comprehension. As a skin-strength martial artist, if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would not have imagined that an inner-strength martial artist who had completed the great completion of the muscles, bones, and skin would have such a godly strength. Many of his confidants, whom he was so proud of, were cut like melons and vegetables by her. They had no power to resist. No one could resist a round. But in the end, ginger is still spicier. You definitely did not expect me to have a backup plan. I'll let you be proud for a while. You want to save your father? Dream on. I spent 10 years bit by bit the poison in his body, there is no antidote. Now your father's dantian has been completely destroyed and he has become a cripple. For a martial artist, he would rather be dead than alive. Who will back me up? Don't joke around, do I, Wen Jingyun, need people to support me? Everyone is in the palm of my hand. I only need to borrow a little external force to turn the Wen family upside down. As for you wanting to know who is coveting you, Wen, there are many people who covet you more than you can imagine. Who asked you to be the rare genius of the Wen clan. But they've all underestimated you. Reaching Skin Jing at 20 isn't your limit. Reaching the Great Scholar realm at 20 is terrifying. Fortunately, you have to die. I am reluctant to destroy a genius with my own hands, but I, Wen Jingyun, am the true destiny of the Wen family. You, your father, and your second uncle are only obstacles in my way. At this moment, 3 rays of light suddenly flashed in the distance. Wen subconsciously raised her head and looked in the direction of the light. Wen Jingyun saw the 3 rays of light in Wen's eyes. His mind spun like lightning. His chance had finally come. After waiting for so long, the snipers that he invited from abroad had finally made their move. In a fight between martial artists, it was originally a competition of skills and strength. It was a competition of the fact that swords and sabers had no eyes. Third Uncle Wen had only invited these snipers as a precaution. He did not really count on modern firearms. But today he had no other choice. He could only place his last hope on those 3 people. Fortunately, they didn't disappoint him. He had seen the strength of their powerful sniper rifles before. Not to mention a mortal body, even a weapon made of fine iron would be shattered into powder under one shot. Third Uncle Wen grinned and tilted his head back slightly, wanting to dodge to the back. Wen didn't have much experience fighting with firearms, but when she saw the 3 rays of light at the same time, she felt a sense of danger and all the hairs on her body stood up. Not good. She was plotted against. She wanted to dodge to the side, but the more she wanted to dodge, the stronger the feeling of danger enveloping her became. The sixth sense of a martial artist in the Wenzhong realm told her that no matter which direction she dodged to, she wouldn't be able to dodge these 3 bullets. She couldn't dodge. The bullets were too fast. She couldn't dodge. "Am going to die." As the saying goes, a person's thoughts were at the speed of light. At this moment Wen felt this way. It took a long time to describe, but in a millisecond, countless thoughts flashed through her mind. There was relief, helplessness, and even more regret. Yesterday she had already prepared herself to die. This morning she had escaped from Qin Guang alone in order to silently find relief. But suddenly she discovered that she didn't have to die. She had suddenly become a Wenzhong. An opponent that she originally couldn't match had been easily killed by her. Originally she had planned to deal with this rebellious third uncle, then return to the Wen family and slowly plan. No matter who was hiding behind him, who was secretly coveting her or implicating Qin Guang, with her current Wenzhong realm strength, as long as she steadily managed the Wen family, the truth would come to light sooner or later. But when she thought about how she would face Qin Guang in the future, she would be a little embarrassed and vexed. But now she was going to die again. She finally discovered that she still couldn't bear to part with him. There were too many things she couldn't bear to part with. She had never heard that fellow say he liked her. After she died, with her father's current powerless state, even if he was still the eldest son of the Wen family, he might really follow in the footsteps of her and second uncle like third uncle said. Forget it, a person dying is like a lamp going out. After death, everything will be empty, forget it. Qin Guang quickly climbed up the mountain valley using his hands and feet. He could faintly hear the voices of people in front of him and the smell of blood in the air became stronger. The precise analysis of the country's movements was indeed reliable. He had actually followed Wen's direction. The smell of blood in front of him made his heart feel alarmed. He was also worried that with his current ability he would drag her down if he ran over. But he absolutely couldn't just shrink back and hide. He took out a few darts from his bag and held them in his hand. Forget it, he was going to risk it all. Although his mood was complicated, his movements weren't slow. Just as he stepped on a rock and jumped forward, he climbed over the shrubbery in front of him. His feet firmly planted on the ground, he raised his head and saw Wen pressing the knife against third uncle's neck. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a flash of light on the mountaintop to his right. Qin Guang immediately froze in place. His mind turned and a thought flashed through his mind. A gun. And it was a sniper rifle. 3 guns. At this time, Wen still maintained her posture with her neck slightly tilted back. Her hand grabbed the knife and moved forward. The black-robed old man lying on the ground had a smile on his face and also adopted a posture of distancing himself. these bullets were aimed at Wenwen. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped and Qin Guang's mind went blank. He spread open his right hand and several darts fell from his palm before he clenched his fist, leaving only one dart in his palm. His gaze focused in that instant. With the center of the 3 light sources and Wenwen's chest as the coordinate, an arc of the bullet's trajectory appeared in front of Qin Guang's eyes. He could only gamble. In fact, the sniper could have aimed at Wenwen's waist or abdomen, or even her head. However, Qin Guang did not have any time to think about it. He could only speculate subconsciously. At such a long distance, the sniper's target was a martial artist like Wenwen. If he was the sniper, he would definitely aim at the center of her torso. Other than that, although there were 3 flames, 2 of them were definitely used to seal Wenwen's body. If she stood still, only the one heading towards her would be able to hit her. Qin Guang could only gamble on which of the 3 lights represented the bullet aimed at Wenwen. His mind was gambling. His body was also gambling. He was gambling on whether his hand could keep up with the speed of the bullet. He was gambling on whether the darts he shot with all his strength could accurately hit the fatal bullet. He was gambling on whether his strength could cause the bullet of the sniper rifle to deviate. Unconsciously, the muscles in his right hand contracted crazily. He even felt a tearing pain. Even the Qilin arm, which had been tempered hundreds and thousands of times, could not bear the burden under his crazy strength. If time was slowed down 100 times, the expression on his face would quickly change from shock and panic to determination. He opened his arm and fiercely flung it forward. A tungsten steel dart shot out from the fingertips of his right hand. It flew toward a certain point in the path of the bullet. Life or death, success or failure all depended on this one move. Flames suddenly appeared in midair. In the next moment, Uncle Wen, who was preparing to escape with a face full of pride, suddenly stiffened. A bloody hole appeared on the top of his head. The bullet had once again pierced through his back. About 4 or 5 meters behind Wenwen's body, 2 puffs of smoke rose up. It was the 2 bullets that blocked her path. Even in death, Uncle Wen did not understand why he was the one who died under the sniper rifle. Qin Guang even felt a bit weak all over his body. His right hand was sore and painful. That dart just now had used up almost all of his strength, but he still made it in time. This dart seemed to have only been shot in an instant, but it was at the highest level he had reached so far. Whether it was strength, accuracy, or even luck, they were all on his side. The tungsten steel dart carried the full strength of the Qilin arm. It collided with the bullet that was supposed to fly toward Wenwen in midair, causing it to change direction and hit the old man. He sat on the ground and wiped the cold sweat off his head. Wenwen had originally wanted to die. She only hated that she couldn't follow up and end Uncle Wen's life with a knife. However, the bullet didn't hit her body. She was stunned at first and then felt even more surprised. Then she heard Qin Guang let out a long sigh of relief. She turned her head to look at him. At this time, 3 gunshots rang out at the same time. Qin Guang grinned and raised his left hand. "Hi. Why did you come?" Wenwen cried out in surprise. But she immediately reacted. "That shot in midair just now." Qin Guang nodded. "That's right. That shot in midair." Qin Guang nodded. "That's right. It was your good brother's unique dart skill. I already told you that I'm a scholar who has been away for 3 days. You still don't believe me? Hurry up and thank me for saving your life." In front of others, Qin Guang might consider doing a good deed without leaving his name. But in front of Wenwen, Qin Guang could brag about it for half a year, even if it was just helping her buy a meal. He didn't know how to write the word polite. He couldn't help but be proud. He couldn't believe that he could really do it. Pay. Wenwen's face turned slightly red. Her heart was filled with surprise and joy. She couldn't help but feel a little shy when she saw him. Previously, when she saw on the internet that this guy suddenly knew how to use hidden weapons, she was rather surprised and didn't think much of it. However, just the dart that he used to save her life in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint was more accurate and stronger than all the hidden weapon sects in Wenwen's memory. She didn't expect that Qin Guang would come to save her. She didn't even think that he would save her. She smiled. Her heart was so sweet that it was almost suffocating. If it was another time, she even wanted to plunge into this guy's arms. But she immediately realized that it wasn't the time to reminisce. Pei, is this how you treat your man? Qin Guang stood up and made a fuss. Wenwen's expression changed. Don't talk nonsense. You hide behind that rock first. I'll go kill a few people and then come back to tell you in detail. As soon as she finished speaking, she shook her long knife and jumped forward like lightning. She went straight to the hiding place of the 3 snipers. In the distance, the 3 assassins hiding in the dark looked at each other. You actually missed. How could I miss? The newcomer used something to block my bullet. How could it be? Don't talk nonsense. Go quickly. There's still a chance. There's no chance. You don't know how terrifying this woman is. We've been tricked. Their voices drifted along with the wind. Wenwen's ears drifted to the sound of the 3 arguing from afar. Her gaze was cold as she sank her chi into her dantian and shouted, "Since you're here, don't leave." She jumped down from the tree, but he had already heard the sound coming from afar. He ordered the other 2, "We'll split up and escape. Quickly." The 2 people responded quickly. They didn't dare to continue fighting. They even threw down their sniper rifles and ran away. However, they only heard the sound of something piercing through the air coming from behind the 3 of them. The 2 of them were not paying attention and heard 2 piu-piu sounds. The 2 of them fell to the ground in unison, but the back of their necks had already been pierced by 2 flying darts. How could Qin Guang possibly hide? Although he was a few hundred meters away from the 3 of them, he didn't lose anything by throwing 2 darts. In any case, he wouldn't lose anything even if he missed. Taking advantage of the moment when they weren't paying attention, he managed to launch a sneak attack. However, she twisted his body and the 3rd dart brushed past his neck, allowing him to escape. He looked back at Qin Guang, who popped his head out from behind a rock in the distance. Then he looked at Wenwen, who was carrying a knife like a cheetah in the valley. She's face was ashen. This woman was too fast. It seemed that he couldn't escape. Qin Guang pouted unhappily. As expected, the power of the dart thrown with his left hand was greatly reduced. This guy actually twisted his body and dodged it. However, the other 2 weak chickens were still fine. At least the old man still maintained a hit rate of 66%. Wait for your death. On the other side, Wenwen rushed up the slope at the foot of the mountain. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.